Yeah, we're going to kick it here with episode, what are we, 67? No?
32.
32. Oh, 32. Oh, okay. So not 67, but episode 32 of Iowa's number one. And it should be Iowa's number one. We're actually literally, a side note, if anybody, our fans listen, watch this, we will be in Okoboji here in just like a week or so at the Iowa Fire Chiefs Conference up in Okoboji there. So for as guest speakers during the weekend, which is pretty exciting. So yeah, your favorite podcast again. Yeah, myself, Phil Marchand, with me to my right, as always, this oak tree of a man. His name is synonymous with saltiness, Mr. Devin Shipper. And thank you for your service, Ben Moorhead. We miss you. Hurry back home.
Yeah, be safe.
Safe. Today's guest, we are honored. This is Amazeballs. After our last guest and stuff, we were able to make some contacts, and we have the OG. It says the OG of the Nozzle Forward program,
That's
Lieutenant
right,
Aaron Fields of Seattle Fire. So what is this? Is it Vedu Canis Vedu? So go dog go.
Yeah, Vado Canisvano. Yep.
Okay, Vado Canisvano. It's my Midwest Minnesota accent there. It slurs things a little bit. So, yeah, we know. But yeah, here to talk about Nozzle Forward. So this is, like I said, this is exciting, and this is if anybody's into hose stuff and tactics and advancing
into
things,
the
just
job.
into the job, yeah, just stuff and nerding out on things. This is a big deal, and this is the guy. So, yeah. So we can call you Aaron. You want us LT? You got Salty Dog. I mean, what do you want?
The Aaron's fine.
Aaron's fine. that's the best
say,
thing we can call you.
Lou, how do you do, man? Yeah. It's an honor to be here with you, and thanks for taking some time and to talk to us folk over here in the Midwest. We appreciate it.
No problem.
So, Aaron, why don't you just kind of tell you a little bit of who you are, where you're from, what's your vibe, what's your story?
So I was born I'm born and bred in the Pacific Northwest, which these days is unique since a lot of people transplant. But I was born on the Canadian border in a town called Bellingham. And I was born and then quickly moved. Well, I was raised in Seattle. I was raised in the neighborhood that I spent most of my career working in. I did this is pretty well-trodden material, but at least as I told my kids, I mutually separated from high school in the 11th grade. I went to trade, played some sports at a pretty reasonable level, and that took me into some really unique opportunities on psychomotor skill acquisition and actual coaching theory, not drill theory, which is very different. And then I met, I've been married to the same person for 33 years. And in this job for your first marriage at 54, that's like you basically, if you could touch me, you'd be touching a unicorn. And the thing to say is that, and to note, the marriage in itself is not what's remarkable. What's remarkable is that our relationship is better today than it has ever been. And, we're not bored of one another. We don't take each other for granted. We're each other's best friends. And so in addition to being, in love, which is, we're not supposed to say that kind of stuff on fire service. We're supposed to say, yeah, I put up with her, but the truth of the matter is, it's awesome. So I got serious about life and ended up putting myself through school, or we put me through school, and played some more sports, got out of college, university, and did some really interesting teaching experience while I was kind of figuring out what it was I was going to do. I am the son of a Seattle firefighter. Until he retired, and my younger brother is as well. So I got hired by someone else before Seattle, one of our neighboring departments, and I worked there for about 5 years, and then went over to Seattle, and then spent most of my career working in the fire station that was my neighborhood station. And then I moved up the hill. My dad got cancer from the job. And Ellen and I, in their infinite wisdom, tried to deny his claim a few times, but it ended up being okay and working it through. But when he got pulled off his rig, about 6 months later, I reported, and we have a way in Seattle that we track crew and shift and what we call debit, which is the opposite of a Kelly. And I was in the spot that my dad had worked for his 29, 30 years until he got pulled off the line. So that was pretty cool. And then was the first firefighter permanently assigned in the kind of the modern regime to the training division for a couple of years, got promoted to lieutenant, went back to the companies, worked in the companies, and then did some guest stints down in the training. I've always pretty much had some either part-time or full-time with our training division. And then on the advice of a mentor of mine a few years ago, I started looking at other possibilities and new ways to look at the job and new angles to take on material that, I was at least familiar with. And so I've been on 25 total. And on July 4th, I pulled my last day with Seattle. It was on the books until August 1st. August 1st, I started with a new fire department as a local one. I had a few offers kind of rolling at the same time, but the local one was by far the best. It was the best choice for all things considered. And so I'm the assistant chief of operations and training now for Camano Island Fire.
Way to go, Chief.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it's still getting weird, and it's weird. It's getting weird. It's weird to think of, but this fire department is in a very, very healthy place, and as far as culture and their their skills, they're going to an academy that from one of the local academies here that I was in the original kind of authors of that academy. So the guys that are here know the skill set. So this has really been fun because in the last 5 years I've been doing way more. Still doing Nozzle Forward and all that, but also doing a whole lot of consulting on training methodology, like actual modern psychology, biology, physiology of how to train and architecture of how to design your curriculum to lead to success. And so that's been it's really interesting. And I think that, the course of the career, the main thing I would say is, I've always thought that two of the single most important characteristics of a firefighter is that they're intellectually curious and they have a work ethic. And I think that it's not popular to necessarily say this, but in order to not retire bitter, you have to be challenged, because when you become comfortable, you become lackadaisical, and you should always feel a little bit like a cat on a hot tin roof. And so this has been really fun, and I wasn't running from anything in Seattle at all. I would have been happy to finish my career with my crew and all that. But what I've always done is I've always pursued to make good decisions traditionally for myself. Even the bad ones end up being good in the long run because of the scars you take and the bumps you make. And but this was a really good, healthy move. It's been really good for my perspective, and it's fun, which is fundamentally why we
probably
do this.
Probably the most important, right?
Well, like I said, you get to the end of that career, and it's like, but good for you to find something that kind of keeps that fire burning. Keeps you hungry, yep. Keeps you after it, and then being able to pass, all that knowledge, skills, and abilities and stuff, and pass that down to the next guys coming up, and light that fire for them and everything.
Yeah, and create a system that's actually paramilitary instead of a collection of hodgepodge crews that do things in very different ways. There are many ways to clean a rifle, but you get taught one way and you're going to clean it that way. And you cannot accomplish the intent of the order in a diversified mobile command without a series of standard operating techniques and standard operating guidelines. And so documentation is something that I'm really big on. And that comes not from the fire service, because we're masters of plagiarism and half truths and half understood sound bites. That comes from academics. Being an academic for a while was instrumental, because I learned how to do research and I learned how to do bibliographies that are actually legal, which is something that we skirt the corners on. I mean, fairly frequently.
Right.
You know, and I think that's been, and this department was looking for, and I quote, a blue collar chief. So
Okay,
there
you go.
get to still go on the good. I go on the big ones, you know, so I don't have to do the 32-year-old with bellyache anymore because they lack pioneer hardiness. You know, it's not that's which is good and refreshing.
So with the, and I guess, you know, with the, I mean, you're knocking like lots of our questions out. This is lots. You're just, we're taking it all in. So, I mean, pretty much, you know, I mean, your origins with the fire service, I mean, pretty young age. So you said 20, 25 years. How old were you when you got on in Seattle?
Well, with Seattle, I would been on for 5 years. So, I have 20 in Seattle, and I had 5 years prior.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know, it was weird because I lived in a neighborhood that was not wasn't the neighborhood you visit when you come to Seattle.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you know, it's like, it's funny to me that heroin is made and opioids have made this huge thing. Well, where was all this public outrage when crack was ravaging my neighborhood?
Right. Yeah.
Isn't it funny how the demographic changes the public attention? Anyway, and I remember the fire department showing up and treating everyone like they were crackhead or millionaire. They got good treatment. And really, it was the only institution that was a public institution in the neighborhood that I was in that had that. And that was something I was like, well, that's pretty cool. When I was a kid, saw something or in my neighborhood, saw people, a fire, and saw people that I ended up working with later in my life, but also knew my dad and everybody getting off and going to work. And it was kind of a big life-changing moment, which took, 15 years to manifest. You had to, if you'd asked me when I was 18, I was going to be the bass player for a punk band in Public Enemy. That,
right,
there you go.
Right on.
Yeah.
And you had to do some of that.
Yeah.
Right.
So, well, Seattle at the time, I mean, come on.
Always a huge music town.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
It has.
Growing up then with your dad being on the department, did you hang around the firehouse at all?
No, and it's interesting. No. And I'm the same as my dad. Like, I think my wife has been in my 25 years by a station, maybe 5 times. Okay. This is interesting. And my have been by like 3 or 4 times now. And I'm not saying my way's by any means the right way. What I am saying is one of the things, I've taught in every state except, after this year, it'll only be 2 or 3 left that I haven't taught in every province except a few, at 3, I think, or 4, 3 or 4. And one of the things that Canadians do that's an interesting subtext to language is they don't refer to fire stations as firehouses. They refer to them as fire halls. Yes. And part of the reason for that is I don't want you feeling like this is your house. You can't put your fucking feet up. You've got to act like this is a place of employment. And that relationship predicates the mission, and your profession should have more impact than your comfort. So for me, I was that's my opinion on it. And other people can manage this. I can't be who I am as a dad and a husband and an officer or a firefighter on busy companies when they're sitting around. I can't do both. I have to be in, it's been proven that human beings don't multitask well, despite what we think. And that to me was a multitask. And my dad was the same way. He's like, I love the fact that you want to come up and visit, but when I'm at work, I need to be at work so I can be on my A game. I can't be thinking about the fact that you forgot to do the dishes again. And, you know, and so I did not. What I did have was people coming over after shift and having breakfast and doing things like that. So that was more of my exposure. It was what they were doing when their hair was down, not when it was up. So
Okay.
yeah, I like to have that separation. It keeps me sharper.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I I like that thought process and stuff, and it it is a little bit different mindset where we talk about family and have a family there, and it's a firehouse, all that. So, but I mean, really, it is
and everything said's true.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah,
and you got to be on your A game.
Right, and everyone can manage it in all aspects. That's right. I mean, I'm not the best father or husband but it's interesting. So one of my all-time favorite organizational books that I've read, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, and every time I read it, I get something else out of it, which means it's exceptional, and it gets classified. I'm not a business school guy. It's not my jam. And it gets classified as a business management book. It's not. It's an organizational dynamic culture defining book, and it's called Legacy, and it's by an author that discusses the protocols and the culture of the New Zealand All Blacks, the rugby team.
Oh yeah.
And one of the things, and this is a paraphrase, but this struck me last time that I read it, because it was right after having basically the same conversation, and my friend going, boy, I don't get that. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. I mean, if you can, by all means, I don't mind when your folks or when your family comes in. For me, it doesn't work. And one of the things one of the All Black captains says, and I agree, and he says it in a very different way, but I don't believe your life is a pie chart. I think the mission in front of you at the moment is where your attention is. So I don't do the whole family this percentage, it's all in or it's not worth doing in the moment, which means I don't have to do, like, his comment was, if a new player for the All Blacks gets pulled up and they say, what's important to you? And the All Black player says, well, the All Blacks are the most important thing except my family. They don't want them. They're like, the mission of the All Blacks is to win rugby games. And when you're on the pitch, that's the only thing you're thinking about. You need to be square with your family. And then when you go home, they're the important thing. So it really isn't about one or the other. It's about identifying. And the team captain is, he's very blunt. He's like, we don't want you. If you've got something that's keeping you from winning this match, then that's what we're here to do. That's why we have this opportunity, is to win this match. And so it was really cool, because it was just, most people don't kind of feel the way I do about it. And that's okay. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but to hear somebody that performs at an elite level, like dominant world-class level, say the same kind of premise, which is there's time for everything if you cut out all the bullshit and focus on the things that are important. And mission, no matter what set you're in, if that's explaining to the vice principal why your kid took the guy down, because he was, why your kid took the other, if you're explaining, then that's what you're focused on. I'm not focused on my cell phone. I'm not focused on what the store. I'm focused on this right here. And that's that whole kind of, be in the moment type of thing. So it's an interesting thing. But my experience with get back to the original question was, it was always post Firehouse. Those guys, when they were off, when they were coming over for breakfast and flipping me shit for being late to school and I needed to cut my hair.
Nice. Yeah. So I guess tell us, before we really get into Nozzle Forward and really get into the weeds of stuff, can you tell us, let's just run down a little bit about the departments and stuff? Because, Seattle being a lot bigger than we are, but what about your new department? How big of a department is that, the one you're currently on now?
4 stations. 4 stations. They are 3 platoon, 4 stations. It's much smaller. It's more rural, but it has urban. It has some It's on an island, and it's a drivable island, so you can drive it off. They've got automatic aid with all their neighbors, which is really one county. It's interesting. We're part of Island County, but we don't touch any other island county. In order to get to other island county, you have to drive through Snohomish and Skagit. So it's what makes it interesting is that you're doing automatic aid with fire departments that are operating under another jurisdiction completely. So that's kind of, it's challenging. But they have good relationships. Most important thing is this fire department has grown a lot in the last 15, 16 years. And some of the people that were the kind of the four or five major people that were shepherding that change are still here. And I've known several of them for that duration. So it is different, but at the end of the day, this fire department has maybe more unique single family dwelling than Seattle does, because they have everything from Seattle density and Seattle style houses to shacks and farms to commercial buildings that people are living in. So it isn't like you can drive into Ballard and go, well, I know the 4 of the 14 basic floor plans that I'm going to see here. And so that's, and really the nuisance call, what we saw in the city, I'm just not seeing here. And that they go on their fair share of EMS that's, moderate to low acuity, but there are paramedics here. In Seattle, our paramedics transported 8 minutes to a hospital. Here, 25 at short, and maybe up to 40. So they're doing work. And so and at the end of the day, I've taught in so many places that even if I haven't worked in the demographic, I've helped write standard operating guidelines and worked with people that have worked in that demographic. So already something's come up here that I was not personally familiar with, but I know 3 people that operate. So I call them up and go, let me bounce this off you. What do you think? And they're like, oh, that's pretty good. Try this or that. So yeah, it's different, but it's, 68 to 72% of the fires fought in North America are fought in 14 to 1,800 square foot homes, 2 bends on a 1-story, 3 bends on a 2, 1 line, and 1 and 2 rooms. Living in the city, being part of a high-rise company and all that, how many high-rise fires we did? Not near as many single families and multifamily. That's where people live, where it's so, and they've got some heavy industrial low, nothing over 6 stories in the area. But having done high-rise firefighting, I'm okay with that. That's listen, you're a
cool.
fire, your poop fart separating confused like 4 times before you get to the fire floor. So this is not so bad.
Exactly. Yeah. What I guess with Seattle and stuff, though, let's touch on that just a little bit, because real big. Big department. What kind of I guess for a response, like a working fire, what do you get response wise for how many rigs that are working on? Or do you guys run it like a box alarm, or what's kind of like, are you running how many bodies you putting on the ground?
First alarm is 24 sets of working hands. So depends on the type of alarm, but most of the time it's 5 engines, 2 trucks, chief, medic, safety, that kind of thing. So it's pretty standard for most of 4-person dense urban response patterns, right? I think that's one of the things that's been time getting used to, is the second due here sometimes is right on top of you and sometimes isn't. Like the last time I checked, when I was doing some authoring of stuff for Seattle, the average time difference between second and third due, this is a few years ago, was 33 seconds.
Wow.
So that was mean average. So we just, and really what that does is, as an engine boss there, my tactical choices were much more narrow than they are here. And here you focus just as much on the primary line, because despite all the what ifs that are out there, mostly you save everybody by putting a fire out. You know, and if you're limited response and you're not going to be able to cover all 4 basic things with your first due alarm, then you have to prioritize. And the first one's water and the second one's search. And, you know, I struggle when I hear guys are like, well, I'm going to drop the line. It's like, ooh, you know, how long until that unchecked fire is now checked? Like, I go by this person, they're not cooked. I put the fire out and vent the room. They're fine. You know, it's like, and having pulled people out once or twice, because I was usually on an engine, I didn't do that very often. A 160-pound guy deep in a 2-bedroom apartment took about everything and soloed him. It was about everything I had. I was like, I wish I could tell you this. Lit a Marlboro off the rollover and said, "Don't worry, we got this." It was not that case. Like, his ankle turned into a square knot around the sofa leg. You know, so yeah, I think it's a lot of times, because fire service is a lot of there's a lot of debate on what is and what isn't, and the reality of it is do it a few times, it becomes pretty clear what you are and aren't going to do. Yeah,
for sure.
You guys were they running 4-man engine companies then? 4-man engine companies and 4 or 5-man truck companies? Yeah.
4-man truck. We used to be more, we lost staff for that. So we are 4 and 4.
Do more with less. That's the theme around the American Fire Service too.
Yeah. So. For everybody's, all the politicians don't like us until they can shake our hands and say they like us. Right. Yeah. We're one of the performance-based municipal organizations that exist for possibility, not probability.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So on the EMS side, then is the Seattle Fire. They run an ambulance, or one of the ambulances, their transport service too, 911 and a transport service.
So it's Seattle is this place I'm at now, Camano, does do transport. Seattle did not do BLS transport. So an engine or truck everyone is an empty, an EMT. It's, if you sound out EMT, it says empty, just so you know. Really, if all the blood, heart breathing, and you're breathing, there's not a lot I can do for you. If those 3 things aren't happening, then maybe I can do something. But so everybody's an EMT. And so we would go, and depending on protocol, the alarm type, the medic, the ALS unit might be activated, dispatched right away with us. And if not, then we could upgrade for them. Our paramedic unit there were 7 units in the city, both double medicked, and all of those medics were Seattle Fire personnel. So it used to be, now we're in the city's in such bad shape with staffing. They're changing rules right and left, but it used to be that you had to do some downtown time, and then you would go to the ALS. You could test for the paramedic, and you'd go through a year training. You owed the city 5 years as a fire medic. So you carry your gear, and when we were heavy, when we had a full staff, basically, sometimes you'd get to ride on an engine, but usually you stayed on the box. And the only thing that they go on is ALS. Our paramedics don't do BLS at all, and they only transport ALS. So if they decide it's BLS after evaluating the patient, then they can call the AMR, the private ambulance company that comes in and does the transport. And if we don't need them, that's who we call. We call AMR, though there's talk of moving away from that in the next few years. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, because that's kind of when you talk about Seattle too, is like the EMS side of things. In the EMS world, the Seattle kind of became for a long time was like the gold standard as far as, the number of drugs and procedures and just stuff to do. I know a lot of our innovations, the things that we were doing here and pushing and stuff, was stuff that Seattle's been doing for a long time. We were trying to kind of model our system after theirs, as far as, like I said, just the amount of capabilities that they're doing out there versus other places in the country,
Yeah, the paramedics in King County have quite a leeway. I would say that there are places that have taken the stuff that we're doing and twisted it and tweaked it to fit their demographics really well. Sometimes I think the tides have changed some, but I don't think so. one of my basic philosophies in life is try new things. And there's only 3 outcomes that come from trying new things. And none of those things are bad. One, wholesale adoption. This new thing is better. And I can explain why it's better because I've compared and contrast, not theories. Second one, hybridization. We take something that is someone else brings in that's improves what we're already doing. And the third one is wholesale rejection. And that isn't bad either, because now you know why you do what you do more thoroughly. That being said, I think Seattle's paramedicine is fantastic. I mean, there are paramedics there that I would prefer over physicians. But that doesn't mean that other people haven't done something that maybe we could look at to improve our retention of our paramedics or recruitment of our paramedics. And you know, and I'm not saying there's a right or wrong. I just think that sometimes when the country kind of views you as the originator because they started the Medic One program back in the 70s, sometimes, you know, other people have some good problem solving skills too. Maybe take a look, just a look. It doesn't mean you have to do it. Just take a look.
Yep. So I tell you what. So let's get into this nozzle forward stuff, because I mean, you seem like I don't know. I think Ship and I are like over our head. Like you're the level of thought process that's going in that Chrome of the Chrome Dome of yours there. That's like you've got. Like I say, you can tell you know your stuff, and you've spent some time, like you said, in scholastic study and everything. You know, when you're talking about like breaking things down almost to an algorithm of how to do training, that's like teaching fire behavior at the molecular level, you know, where and I tried to do that before, and that's unless you're a chemist, teaching, you know, the molecular level of fire behavior gets, you know, you get after it. But let's kind of break down what Nozzle Forward, I guess, break down what it is, how it started. I mean, what gave it its seedlings, its roots, you know, where's the foundation of that from?
Fear and humble pie, a full humble pie. So much, I like to say I ate the whole pie, left nobody anything, and should be diabetic. But I think that actually keeps you from becoming diabetic. And frankly, I got scared in an early fire, real early on. It wasn't a big deal, really, when you look back at it. But to a new firefighter that kind of went through thinking, I mean, from, you know, 11:30 at night to 5:30 in the morning, I thought my dad was dead in the hang fire in the mid 90s. And the guy that died, I you know, would occasionally come over for breakfast. I mean, it was real to me, more so than most of the state instructors, because none of them really knew anybody, because it's fairly rare, actually, statistically. And then I just got buggered up and was trying to do what my state had told me to do. And I checked all the goddamn boxes. And funny thing, the box of put the fire out was never there. It was all the other stuff. And because I was a little older and I had done some stuff that involved the constant pursuit of leverage since I was a kid, I came out, and a previous VA had helped me out. He was a guy that didn't even recognize what he was doing, but he kind of got me out of this pinch and discussed to me the benefits of leaving a line on, which at this time only a few places in the country were doing still, because their training environment had diverged so much from the real life environment, coupled with the addition of bunker gear and SCBA and fire training, that loses focus on the mission. If you go into a burn for a training, you're in there for the fire. When you go into a real fire, you're in there for the civilian. And so what you can get away with changes when you realize that some are protected and some aren't. So I ate a full serving of humble pie, spent the next 10 years largely traveling and taking classes from people around the country, and noticed that they were technique driven, not problem solving. So they weren't teaching linear and circular algorithms. They weren't teaching tap, rack, bang, and then a battle drill to clear the room. right? And I had a background in, I had some coaches when I was living overseas that gave me a bibliography in 94. And I started reading this bibliography. I was still in college and started applying it to my sports. And then after school, before I got hired, I worked as a teacher, and I worked as an English as a second language teacher, which was maybe my best moment of teaching ever has come from that. Other than, the most life-saving events that we have here, for both firefighters and civilians. But and then I worked in a private school with a woman by the name of Gwen Williams, who was the headmistress, and she was into brain science before brain science was cool. And like, this is what's going on with nerves, and this is what's going on with tactile receptors and visual receptors, and these senses are faster than these senses. And by the way, how you phrase things makes a difference. And as somebody that studied linguistics in college, that was like, oh yeah, well, of course, words matter. Words affect the semantically how we interpret what we're seeing. And she was very articulate. And then she would give us these books on like wiring the brain, basically, which we know now from studying brains and mapping them is exactly. So what she was saying was kind of figurative is now literal. And we know how brains work and how to activate multiple cortexes and how you store information in different sections and how to manipulate your teaching environment to create neural pathways that lead to, not figuratively, I'm not a hipster, literally means literally, not literally means figuratively, literally use more, which is my biggest language pet peeve. Like, it isn't figurative, literally, face was on fire. No, figuratively it was, for fuck's sake. So literally is mapping the brain, and that's leading to, which goes into a bunch of stuff. Like a buddy of mine who I had the great cup of coffee with him yesterday. It's a friend of mine I've known for years, and we had kind of we've had real conversations before, but like, we went from being friends to friends yesterday. And he was talking about some processes, and I was talking about some stuff, and he was talking about him solving some life problems that he's had for years with neural mapping. Well, my dad had a brain bleed in January and is completely recovered. And people are like, oh, that's great, he healed. Well, yeah, but how did his brain heal? By creating new neural pathways. Those old ones that told him how to walk are gone. They're no longer functioning. The road is washed out, but how the brain, and so that part of things was really fascinating. And then I had experience coaching in my sports. So 10 years in of taking these classes, and all I was doing is deconstructing all of the story. There was one time that I'm not interested in one time. I'm interested in most times. And that you build professions from a probable to possible standpoint, not for what might happen, not teaching the most random crazy thing, teaching the probability, so that people are learning to recognize the OODA loop, or recognition prime decision making. They're learning to recognize and have expectation of outcome based upon pre-planning, and understanding that nothing is instinct other than biological functions. Everything is acquired. So how do you get people? And I was working on it for myself, and then two guys said, hey, what'd you just do? Was it a mutual company drill? And I'm like, oh, I did this. And a week later, I get a call from this training chief in this neighboring fire department. He's like, hey, our guys said they worked with you on this. They just used this skill. We've never seen it before, but they saved a building and kept somebody alive. Would you come show that? And I was like, well, sure. And they're like, so I came out and kind of showed them a skill set that I was working on for myself, because I didn't want to die, and never had any indication nor impetus to do this thing. And I think one of the kind of powerful statements is that nobody in my cadre wants to teach or coach, depending on the setting, and they're different, Nozzle Forward. We view it as an extension of our job, and we view it as a medium of information exchange. So I've done things, again, I'm not saying my way is the right way, but we are the most unbusinesslike program out there that I know of. I mean, once you take the class, you can come back every year, anytime, anywhere, forever. You get access to all of our manuals and our videos and all that stuff once you've had it. We don't sell that stuff. There's no swag. There's no advertising. If you know someone that's done it, it's word of mouth. I've done zero advertising. And we're booking into 27. And, you know, conservative estimates through this kind of, as the kids would call it, shareware, as I would say, really, you know, to make it like crabs on a submarine. Once the first sailor gets it, everybody's got it for free. You don't have to pay for that, right? So just so we don't get too, and so, you know, and there's other things like the cadre's done. We do somewhere between $50,000 and $80,000 in charity work a year, where we're donating directly to people that have, and we've done that we've been now coaching for 15 years, and we've done that for about 10 of them, 12 of them, somewhere in there. And so, you know, it's this kind of really interesting thing, because when somebody says, you know, you've got to do all these things, you don't have to do any of them. You just got to do what's right and do it the right way and be willing to play the long game. Everyone's worried about rapid expansion.
Yep.
It's sweat equity, man. It's just keep fucking grinding and don't let people wear you out. And as long as my phone keeps ringing, I'll continue to do it. And when the phone quits ringing, I'll
there it is again.
Yeah, that's probably spam. So it really is something that and if not, I'm occupied here, so they can wait. The whole thing has been very, I guess the way to phrase it would be organic, and that's the way that I like it. So when I don't feel like I've sold anything. And if you get somebody sick, you guys get somebody sick and you're like, man, we could use, you call us, you cover our expenses. We're there. All the proceeds go to them. Like, you know, it's like, and I think that's the kind of thing that's cool that because people recognize that it isn't a marketing scheme. It's not it's fundamental. And, you know, conservative estimates have us somewhere at about the 18 of us that do this, from all around the country, have about 70,000 people that we've directly coached. And we estimate, because we've implemented in hundreds of fire departments, we estimate we've probably have about 200 to 300,000 people that have some exposure, and probably 100, 175 of them that are, or 175, 200 that are what we would call expert level. The other thing that I think is interesting on this, and this is, I mean, is that there's very little deviation. Early on, there was a lot of YouTube copying, but what has happened is people that were copying from the YouTubes are now being called out when they're doing it, because there's people that have been through the 12 times and they're like, that's not how you do it. You're using the wrong context. It's not made for that environment. There was a guy recently that was talking about a maneuver that we do, and he's like, you could never do that. And people are like, I did it last night. And you don't understand, like, why would you do that if you can see your feet? You wouldn't if you can see your feet. And if you've ever been through the class, you know that's the case. And so the community, because they don't feel like it's a commodity, protects itself. And there's very little deviation. Like, for being so widely practiced in all these different demographics, it applies, because your demographic can take the engine, because it's a problem-solving methodology, not a collection of technique, not another tool in the toolbox. Physical continuity, conceptual structure, expectation of outcome, pre-action, not reaction, which is really important for fire attack. You don't attack when you're reacting to. You attack when you're proacting at, and then deviating based upon its response. So, you know, so it's what I like to say is it's a problem-solving method. And we've gotten guys in our group and gals in our group that are so phenomenal that they've taken the same teaching model stuff, which is one of the major components of it, and they've built it out. So I've got a guy he's got a master's degree in architecture, and his thesis is wayfinding and smoke. So he takes the rule of threes, which he learned originally from us, and he takes it and he expands it into, and he vets what we're saying about architecture and building layout to actual architecture. And, you mentioned earlier the chemistry. Like, I don't use a lot of fire service sources because, people are telling you what trusses do and don't that have never framed a house.
Yeah, never framed.
Like,
never build a house. Yeah.
Talk to some structural engineers about this before we go pontificating on what it is and isn't, and then look at the actual data. So I'll go to engineers for fire science. I went to an aeronautical engineer when I didn't understand why a flashover is caused by heat, but it can happen at 1200 degrees Fahrenheit, but the average temperature of rollover is 1400 degrees. And I asked the instructor, well, if that's the case, why didn't it flash? And he says, because I said so. And I'm like, listen, dude, I'm 28 years old. That shit isn't going to fly here because I don't want to die. And it doesn't. No. And despite this guy in particular's motif, I know in 9 months and at engine 13, I saw more fire than he saw in 27 years. When it came to pallets, he was a bad.
Exactly.
4 pallets, 8 pallets, 12 pallets in a concrete building that doesn't burn. Tell me you are phenomenal.
Got my helmet in the oven right now.
Yeah, I was say your salty helmet smells like hay.
Yeah.
I know. And I am petty and vindictive and hold a grudge. So it's only been 25 years. But if I see that fucker, I'll punch him in the mouth.
Well, when it comes to life and death, it's a little, you want to know what you're talking about. You want to know what you're doing. You got not only your life in your hands, civilians, the whole gambit, but a couple things you said that stood out are just, you're not selling snake oil. You see so much of that shit right now. I could go on my phone right now and scroll and see 5 ways to put out a fire, and they're all the best, right? But when it comes down to it, you're only going to do what's real in the moment. And I haven't had the privilege of taking Nozzle Forward, obviously, but I've been hearing about it for years from guys around that have been to it. And, you try to look for videos on it and stuff, and they're like, no, you just got to go.
Yeah.
So that alone, the product's good enough that it speaks for itself. You don't got to push it down people's throats. And that's what's really great about what you guys got going on right now and have been. But
because even your social media, there's like not your social media presence. There's just you guys just aren't out there. But like everybody knows about you.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's it's amazing. It's good for you guys.
I really appreciate that. Those are kind things to say. And I think that what people get when they get back is they think they're going to go learn some technique. Well, sure, but that's the vehicle. The problem, okay, where do I leave the water on? How far away? What's my range? What does it look like? Let me show you some thermal imaging. Hey, if I'm going to shut it off and move forward, what are the 3 reasons I do that? And so make control. Anytime you turn a line on, that's what you're trying to do. How do you do that? You reach, you coat, you seal. Get water through a doorway or when. How do you know you're getting it? Cooling, return, and lift. Why are those 3 in that order? Because you either have enough water to win, you're in the right compartment, and you don't misapply it. If you do those 3 things, you win every time. You have enough water, you put it in the right space, and you don't misapply the water, you're going to win every time. So those diagnostics, it's an XY axis algorithm. It's a linear algorithm of procedure that allows for circular algorithms of problem solving. The Rubik's Cube of the fire, which is what it is. Every fire's not different. Fires don't burn hotter. It's like there's basically 1 of 3 options in every category, whether it's ladders, forces, whatever. And really, human behavior suggests that an experienced mind under duress, acute stress, has 1 of 3 options. I got an idea: tap, rack, bang. That's how they teach you to clear the weapon. That way every time. And there's a reason for it. It's based off probability. Now it's tap, rack, fire or something. They changed it. But but they cite it. And so a lot of this material that I used early before I was ever in the fire service to take my sports apart so that I could be, because I'm an average athlete at best. But I do pretty well. And it's because I out practice everybody. And that's the other one. Like, I am so, if I can speak frankly, fucking sick of listening to guys talk about how many they go on and how many they don't go on. You know what makes a professional? Preparation.
Yeah.
Preparation makes professionalism, and the ability to pursue excellence is the ability to practice through boredom. You're not supposed to be entertained. Just keep doing it. And eventually you'll get good at it, and then you'll win a game. And that's where you're supposed to take your pride, not in the prep. Like, not in,
I think that's a giant problem right now in the fire service in general. We got to come up with this fucking elaborate shit show of a training. And it's like, the guy didn't even make the fucking plug right. What are we talking about here? Or we didn't feed water to the engine. What we just failed the basic. What are we doing here?
We you know, we're professionals, right? In the fire service, we're professionals. This is our career, this is our job. This is what we're paid to do, right? You look at, you know, the best, the championship sports teams and the ones that are consistently winning championships. And yeah, you might say, well, they could go out and buy talent, or they could deflate footballs, or they could do whatever they want. However, they practice.
A deflating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they practice and they practice and they practice. And these are professionals. These are the best athletes on the planet at what they do, and they still practice all the time. So why, if we expect ourselves to perform as the best possible animals on a fire ground, why aren't we doing the same thing every shift?
And identifying what it is that we need to practice and cutting the rest of the stuff out. You know who doesn't practice running the go route? The left tackle.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. And the other one is like the entertainment factor. Like, it's not entertaining. Like I have shot so many single legs that I don't like it, but I like winning. And winning requires me to shoot single legs. And, you know, and it's like, that's the part that people miss, is the grind. And to add to the next level of that, because that's, I believe 100%. When you look at somebody do something on a court or a sport or in the military that has never been done before, you look at it and go, huh? What the hell was that? But when you look at Michael Jordan launch from midway above he's doing something that Julius Erving did. He's doing something that other people, and what did those guys that were exceptional at it? It's doing something that we recognize exceptionally well. That's what we value. And we value work. It isn't the sticker on the helmet. It's not the way you wear your gear. It's the fact that my company pulled more hose than it between the three companies of people I worked with. So my former tailboarder was a lieutenant, and my other one was a captain. Those three companies pulled more hose than damn near everybody else in the city on a fairly regular basis. And maybe not, but it's 33 engines, but we pulled a lot more than any other engine except those other three. And people are like, wow, that's boring. Why are you doing that again? Yeah, I'm doing it so that I can do it and that I know I'm going to do it. And I'm not wondering, I don't have anxiety over my performance. I can focus all of my attention on the problem so that we don't get burned up. Sound reasonable? Like, how about,
yeah.
You're going to watch my blind side. You better be able to know how to fucking block.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you're even going to build on it the next step, right? This is a language thing. And this one is a bit sensitive. But why do we say they got killed? The fire killed them. It isn't the fire. The fire is the model for scientific consistency. It's something that they missed, was missed, they did or didn't do. It's not assessing character flaw. It is saying objectively something was overlooked, ignored, or was the wrong thing. That's what killed them. And until we say that, when I hear people say they died in the fire killed them, you're giving the power of that mistake and our fallen brethren's the responsibility to somebody else, which is taking away the impetus for us to fix it. You know, I mean, it's like it's a really interesting thing, and it's that whole human being looking for the reason why, trying to make sense out of chaos, and it's easier to give that away than own it. And
Wow.
that freaks me out. You know, it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's a subtle thing, right? And I think we have to get to the point where we can objectively evaluate. If I'm on a fire with you guys and I bugger it up, if you care about me, you're going to say, "Hey, Fieldsy, what were you thinking?" "I was thinking this, this, and this." "Ooh, you missed this, or you missed that," or "Hey, pal, that's the wrong choice, and this is why. We'll practice that, and we'll get it next time." Right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's to deal with it. You shouldn't be
Yeah.
like, "You're a fucker, you don't care." Like, and that's
Yeah.
one of the problems with a lot of the training community is that if you think about their narrative, or the narrative that's out there, not intentionally, I don't think they're bad people, but it's us versus them. We're the guys that know. We're the elite. It's like, well, you've got the furry yeti wearing a bandolero when he should be wearing pants, fighting the evil overlord uh empire that's trying to crush you down. And it's not, it's an adversarial tone, us versus them. What are we? Are we knights of the round table now too? Like, how about,
Yeah.
oh, we all just look at it from a perspective of, this is my job. Plumbers aren't like, well, you went to that trade school. Marines
Yeah.
are like Marines,
Right.
you know. And we've got to take the personal out and put the professional in. Professional objective evaluations, not subjective guesses at to why something happened. This is what happened. Let's solve that and assume the best of everyone you're dealing with. And if you know on an individual level they're not the best, we'll call them on that, but call them privately, not
Yeah.
publicly.
Well, and
You know,
from a position of you genuinely care about them and you want them to be better because it's going to keep them alive, which in turn keeps you alive. But if you can build them up, it's going to help build you up and build up your whole organization that way, not just calling them up as a pile just because you want to get them as a gotcha, or you want to put them down, but you genuinely want them to be better because it makes
and
everybody better.
absolutely. And maybe the perceived mistake isn't a mistake. Maybe my interpretation of what happened is incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've gained more perspective. I have a more complete vision of what happened. And, you know, the problem in our industry is guys come into an industry that kind of sells itself like Knights of the Round Table. Let's not forget that Lancelot slept with his best friend's wife. He was a shitty
Yeah.
human.
Yeah.
That whole book is about people trying, well, that incarnation, the French incarnation, is about about fixing the wrongs of the character through the endeavors of action. That's what it's about. It's really about the pursuit of excellence despite the flawed human. So so, you know, they weren't great, but we get told we're this and we're that and we're all these things, and we're flexible hose plumbers that pick up heavy shit and move it around. That's what we do. I mean,
Yeah.
you're like, come off the moral high horse and just do your job and do it well, and take pride in the fact that at the end of your career, if you do it well, you'll never have to have said you compromise your ethics as a human being. And fundamentally, that's why I do it. I'm not going to have to sell widgets to someone that doesn't need it. I'm not going to have to raid
Yeah.
someone's bank account because I need a new Mercedes. It's like, I get to help people that need help, and it's not up to me to decide what type of person it is and whether they deserve help. Just do it, man. Just do it and keep moving. There's the act of being humane, and I think that we sometimes lose point on that. And our mission is that is the mission. Anything gets in
Love
the
it.
way of the mission, fuck off with it. Take it somewhere
That's right.
else.
That's right.
Yeah.
Not interested. Don't have time for it.
Mm.
So you talked a little bit about the application of the technique, but more so on the training mindset. How has your training mindset changed over the years from 20 years ago to now? And what are you teaching everyone?
Well, it depends on two things. Am I teaching or coaching? and there's a semantical difference. So,
And you used that phrase earlier. You coach people, you don't teach them.
well, I teach rookies. I coach experienced firefighters.
Yes.
Your lifting coach doesn't tell you how to do the clean. You know how to do the clean. You teach a
Right.
child arithmetic. You coach them to solve physics problems. And part of the reason for that is there is a semantical divide between a teacher and a pupil. And I see it at conferences all the time where these guys, it's like they're looking for the old man sitting on the mountain. Guys are asking me kinds of questions. I'm like, I got no fucking idea what you're talking about, buddy. I don't know, smoke a cigarette and call him something and move on. Like, that's not what they're looking for, right? So there's this weird, almost sometimes subtext of morality and looking for that kind of sage relationship. And I think we can have mentors, but personally, I'm a full-grown adult. None of the people that have mentored me have given me life advice. They've given me fire advice. My mama and my daddy handled that other stuff. And my wife keeps me in line, right? So
there you go.
my coaching and teaching style has become way more specific. And I don't believe that, the old saying that the good people don't coach only. That's not true. Some of the best professional coaches were also some of the best professional players. The difference is that it is a different skill set. It's not knowing the skills, it's knowing where the skills fit. So the first thing for me is what, why, when, how. Anytime you're teaching a psychomotor skill, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? When would we do it? And how? Too often in the fire service, that's transposed and you hear, well, I'm going to show you how to do this and you'll figure it out when you get there. Or you're mimicking a specific environment instead of not solving a problem. So my methodology has become way more problem solving. And what's interesting, it's a great question. What's interesting to me is that at this point in my life, if I went back, well, I'm going back to coach after years off, coach the team sport I played with 5th through 8th graders and maybe helping out a little bit at the high school level. As going back as a coach now, so my methodology started with deep research in the midnight, starting in 94. And I've been involved actively in this arena in 3 different kind of arenas since 94. And what I used to do was be like most kind of novice instruction, I was more technical based. So in a gym, I would show you a technical maneuver, or in my field sport, I would show you a technique to take the ball away from the guy. Now I say, this is the context. This is the environment. And here's your problem solving. What's the big problem? The angle. Let's fix that. What's the second problem? This. Let's fix that. And then based off the stimuli, we go through the tap, rack, bang procedure. If this, then this. If not, then this. And that's how that linear technical aspect leads to circular. And so you see kids doing things that you never coached them to do specifically. You coached the components and they understood the context. And so naturally, they drew that physical ideational continuity to solve that problem in the moment. So what started in the gym that I ran a gym for 20 years, and it was, I probably coached 1,500 people, coached and taught. In the last 15 years, I've coached personally 70,000. And I've coached them. I don't have 6 months to get you ready for competition. I have 2 or 3 days to get you ready for the big game. And so the methodology that I had has become way more streamlined, and I'm way better at anticipating question and recognizing similarities in error and success. So if you walk out, I have a better idea now of what your likely mistake is going to be technically, and based off the conversation that we had in the classroom, where you might be struggling conceptually. And so it allows me to be much more fluid in my coaching and instruction so that I can address the group as a whole, but also the individual. And that's because we've done so many that we know this technique takes this long. And at that point, we know the trigger of it's good enough, let's move on, because we're going to circle back and everything's going to build on this. So the thing you start with in our program, you end understanding. And that's it's very progressive, and it builds these components so that the brain tracks and draws those neurological pathways that lead to more rapid decisions. The other part that's become super interesting is a lot of times my lecture style gets kind of talked about early on. When someone sits in, they're like, this guy's literally crazy. His brain's all over the place. But what it's not, it's interesting. So where your brain is divided up into different sections. And this is something that in the last 10 years I've really gotten more and more, and has really helped the development of my coaching, is that your brain records data in different places based upon the stimuli in which it receives it. So let me give you a very clear example of this. This is fascinating. If you're raised in Japan, not ethnically Japanese or of Japanese descent, you are culturally Japanese. When you hear a car drive by or white noise, the part of your brain, the section of your brain that hears it, is the side that hears music. If you're raised in the West, it's the part of the brain that records white noise, which has the additional feature of block it out. So when I tell a joke or a metaphor or an analogy, or it seems like I'm on this circular tirade, it's all coming back to a certain point, which what I'm doing is anchoring that thing in different sections of your brain. So no matter what it is stimuli that fires that thing, the whole area that's connected fires simultaneously. So you've got what Dreyfus refers to as closer to unconscious holistic recognition, which is the mark of mastery. And so, it's really I don't like to leave things to chance. It makes me nervous. And so I realized early on that people were taking, like, as so common in that age group is of which I was once part of, this enthusiasm of application. And what I've tried to really focus on is, and we as a group have worked heavily on, is slowing down that enthusiasm so that they understand where their technique, their technical aspects fit. And it's that whole, from war fighting, the preparing people for war in times of peace. How do you do that? And the Marine Corps talks about it, right? And so it's all of these things have been addressed in other environments. And because I'm a synthesizer, that's how my brain works. And some of it is me trying to make sense of it. Like my brain, according to brain science, is in a very big minority of how people think. And in some circles, it actually is borderline learning disability. Like I can't take a multiple choice quest to save my ass, because I'm contextual based. And I couldn't remember a date. But if you tell me the reason for the Chinese dynastic cycle, I can anchor dates to that, because my brain sees lines, it sees connections. It traditionally, what it would be called is a visual spatial learner, but that example has even gone away. In that I am like, here's a great example. When you're done with this, look up John Coltrane's Circle of Fifths. And I spent years playing instruments. I couldn't learn fucking music theory to save my life because it was memorization. I see his circle of fifths, which is a diagram. I understand it. I got it. It makes total sense to me, because he was also a visual spatial learner that connected that brain style to the audio sensors. So it's really the process of educating myself is why I'm kind of so interested in it. And I think, man, it's the things that we could get people to do if we would just get out of our own way and we would just quit saying, well, this is how it's always been done. And we'd quit coming up with another excuse as to why it won't work. Like, I thought our job was to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
Culturally, performance, technical. So, it's just turning that superpower on. And like, I've watched it in my boys. Both of my boys are collegiate. Well, one just signed his letter of intent, and highly recruited goalie in lacrosse, which was my team sport. And, those guys are, you want to talk about algorithmic decision making, like NHL goalies and lacrosse goalies, they're using so much of their brain that they don't, most of the time they don't see that puck come off their stick. They know where it's going to be, and their visual sensors parts of their brain are actually firing because they recognize all the other spatial cues. The third baseman making the backhanded catch that's released to first base before they see first base. Their eyes haven't told them where first base is yet, but the ball is there and they know partway through. So it's like, man, if we could get people to get to that point and not lock in so much that it becomes a habit and it becomes dogma. So you have to go through the steps so that it isn't a reaction, it is a proaction of decision making. With the final one, like, hey man, we can't get this. Back out of this. Let's go. This is not good for us. Let's back out.
Yeah.
But you think about it, we're one of the programs that I know does it, but I know some other ones do. But early on, we were that I know of one of the few programs that had evolutions that were designed for you to recognize you can't make and back out. Because if you don't do that, that neurological pathway is not a possibility under high stress, which is a physiological response to perceived chaos and acute physical trauma. So, it's all this stuff's out there. And really in the fire service, you remember, I always say this, Sesame Street, one of these things is not like the other. We're the other. If you coach like we do in professional sports, you wouldn't be a coach. If you coach like we do in the military's been changing for over 100 years now, and we're not including that. And it's a cultural thing. We're the only performance-based occupation that doesn't go out of service to practice. And that long-term project is what training's about. And none of us came in and were trained to solve long-term projects. We don't know how to do that because we've never been asked to do it. So you go into training at 30 years and you've done nothing other than fires that took more than an hour and a half. And now you have to write a program that's designed to have ramifications 5 years from now. Well, just give me a fucking form and let me check the box and move on, because I just want to go back to the companies because this schedule sucks, right?
Yeah.
In most of these other disciplines, if you get pulled as a Marine sniper to teach sniping, that means something. You get a pin for recognition for that. But we also believe that, we're also the equivalent of like, well, we need somebody to teach sniping. Let's go get the cook. Like, if you're going to teach somebody to teach ladders and hose and those things, probably get your best people to do that and reward.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's like, I don't even know, where to even like divulge, like you. I mean, I could wrap my head around everything you're saying, like just the
what do you
just the
9th and 10th
the 9th and 10th
of this week, or the 14, 15. How far is Colorado for you?
Depends on where in Colorado.
Lafayette.
I don't know. I know Denver's 10 hours. What's Lafayette?
Yeah.
It's got to be 10 hours. Yeah, drivable.
Well, here's the deal. You guys can show up any class I do forever. Just tell me you're coming. We're getting ready to kind of wrap up the year. We're going to be in the Pacific Northwest this week, this Thursday, Friday in the Seattle area. Lafayette, 14, 15. And then the final week or 22, 23, 24. We're going to be 22, 23 in Edina, Minnesota, which is by Minneapolis.
Edina is close. That's only 5 hours.
And then also
where we're at.
Kalamazoo on Saturday, Sunday of the 25, 26. You guys want to make it?
Edina might be so, because that's only 5 hours. That's a real ritzy area. Better up to Edina. I'm originally from Minnesota. I'm like, another 4 hours north of that. So you say raised on the Canadian border. Like I'm Virginia's, Minnesota is about an hour and a half from the Canadian border. So, I can sympathize, just, a different part of the country, but being from, up north.
Yeah.
But
and all of the states and I'm not just telling you this because you're from there, of all the Midwestern states, if I was going to move, one of my favorite cities in the country is Duluth.
Yep.
And I'd go
100%
all day. I'd go to the UP all day. That area of the country is beautiful.
Yeah, the UP is they're a different breed up there. The Upers and stuff, they're a little bonkers at some points. You get the monks up there that'll rob you blind for their bread that they sell. But no, Duluth. Both my parents are from Duluth, so I grew up spent a lot of time growing up in Duluth. Yeah, and I recommend that to anybody if you want to take a vacation with the wife and go during the fall season and stuff when the colors are changing. It's the Superior National Forest there. It's just like it's on fire because they're so vibrant. And that whole area, Duluth, Two Harbors, even if you wanted to go all the way up the shore up to Grand Marais and across the border up into Thunder Bay, it's incredible that whole area. Yeah, if I wasn't here, I would have loved to have been on Duluth Fire if I didn't end up in Sioux City. There's a reason I'm here, but yeah, that's where I would have liked to have landed was Duluth, just because I love the area. So
it's fantastic. And for a guy from the Pacific Northwest, it's green. They're big trees. They're dense. There's more trees than people. And even though that lake is freshwater, it's one of those lakes are the only lakes that feel like the ocean to me. Mm-hmm. It's got the ocean vibe. There's dudes surfing it for damn sake.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it's huge. You can't for a lake, and you can't see the other side. So you're out there, and it's just water forever. And there is no seeing the other side. So let's. You got something, Rap?
I was just going to ask, how do you adapt your coaching style? For that new, young, eager firefighter that wants to take it all in, and then at the same time you got that old crusty firefighter that doesn't really want to be there. So how do you coach all those at the same time?
Well, first thing is I don't tell people that's a great question. I work from the problem solving where if I'm teaching a new person, let's say we have a problem, we have a fire that we're talking about, and we're going to do an evolution. Well, if I'm teaching a new person, I'm teaching from micro to macro. I'm teaching technique, sequencing of technique, where it fits in the evolution, where it fits in the problem solving, and then we're building out those skills so that we can then solve the problem. When I'm teaching at the same time someone that's old and crusty, and I resemble that remark to some degree, I teach from macro to micro. So I go, hey, new firefighter, this is what we're going to be working towards. Senior firefighter, when you've done this, what has been your benchmark? What's your first, second, third step? And so, hey, we're saying the same thing. Let's translate the language first. And then I draw a correlation between so the new guy doesn't think the old guy doesn't know what they're doing, because they do probably. And if they don't, then the only way you're going to get them to figure out what they're doing is not by telling them they don't know. So if you assume everybody does, and you just narrate it in such a way that draws those experienced guys around and go, hey, you used to keep the line on. I had a lieutenant that retired from Seattle that was one of our infamous ones, and he retired after 45 years. And at first he told me, I thought this was all bullshit. There's only so many ways you spoke a wheel. And then he said, and then I heard what you were saying, and you weren't saying you came up with it. You were saying you were taught it. And you were doing the thing that the guys that taught me how to fight fire were doing. You're just doing it in a more organized, ergonomical way. And you've got the language to discuss it in detail, which means we can write it down. He's like, his quote was, I don't know why we flow so little water. It's a renewable resource. Water puts fires out. It's like, why would you not use water? That doesn't make any sense to me. So, so that's the kind of approach I use. And if they're really surly and squirrely and they just don't want it, then they don't want it. And I think this is a thing, like, we spend so much time worried about what the bottom 10% thinks. Fuck them.
Yep.
It's
100%.
You change the fire department by affecting the mean of the 70. And that goes back to what I said earlier about your cadre of instructors can't be the guys that are putting us versus them. We're the top, or we're the ones that the other guys, we're the so-and-so gang that is doing such and such away from what all the masses are doing. And we got it figured out, because you don't change the fire department by making your top 15% better. You change the fire department by making your top 15 on the same page with reasonable expectations, the same curriculum, the same voice, and they say, we, not I. We, not me. This is what we do. And now you bring your middle 70 from C's and B's, you've changed the mean of your fire department. You that's like saying the average brand new enlisted infantry is going to be like a special force unit. They're not. They're going to meet infantry standards. And that we versus me, one of the couple of things that happen is we'll never say this is what I like. There was one time that'll never come out of our mouths, because until we all are on the same page with this is what we do in this scenario, this is how we do this, we, when I say I'm assuming that you know what the we is, you know what the standard issue in the military term is. You know what the standard application of that technique is. So now I'm giving you experience. I is experience. We is standard. You can't have experience without standard. It adds mental chaos, because you're talking about the deviation of standard issue based upon context, which, you can break the rule if you can explain why. I come around, I'm like, hey, Lou, what'd you do that for? And you're like, because this isn't this. You're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Bank that away. We're not going to make that the play because it worked once. We're going to make that an experience. Where are we going to put that in the training curriculum and all that comes up? But there's got to be a time for those. But you can't ask someone that doesn't know how to march, how to form a line and clear a room. Right? You got to pay first.
Jeremy Donch has a good, if you've seen a lot of his stuff in his podcast, and he has that quote and talks about like that you feed your winners, so that your top, why do we lose? Why do we get the guys that get it, and we take them and you get it, you're great, you're top performer, we put you off to the side and we focus all of our attention into those mid-range guys, or we're trying to bring the bottom 10% up.
Yeah.
And it's like, why are we doing that? Feed the winners, the guys that get it, give them the things they want, push them harder, because they're the ones that are going to lead everybody else anyways. Make them excel. They already want to excel. They want to be excellent beyond anything. The average will come up because they'll see that. And then those guys will bring the average, the middle up with them. The guys at the bottom, they're not going to get it. They're either going to get it or they're not, and cut them, because you don't need them.
Yeah, if we could, there'd be a lot of guys working at Home Depot. But
right. You're not going to really cut them, but at the same time, how many times are you going to hold their hand and bang your head against the wall to try to grind it into somebody? If you can't reprogram, like you're talking about reprogramming synapses, and maybe that's something that the fire service station, maybe they, more people need to be looking at your model or your mindset as far as training and doing, and like actually, we talk about reprogramming the brain as far as a mental health thing, and then there's therapies and stuff, they do that, but not really taking that. I think you're the first person I've heard like taking like reprogramming and reprogramming the synapses in your head in as far as training in a methodology of fighting fire. So maybe as the fire service, it's that 10% that we consider as they don't get it. They're not good firefighters. They're lazy. They're whatever. But maybe we're not training them or reaching them the right way. Maybe it's just a simple rewiring or reprogramming, and then all of a sudden they get it, and then all of a sudden they become an average performer who then becomes a top performer. Maybe it's taking a step back and looking at things.
Yeah, and if you open up that door and let people start to work, and you reward the work, not the success will come. Right. And we allow for failure in practice because that's what practice is about. People aren't being punished or berated. They're being encouraged to do it again. And we know our skill sets well enough to not just have them do the whole thing again, but to work on the single piece that they need to fix. And then we change the cultural, what is expected. When most of us came in being into it, it was cooler to be casual about it. And so culturally, a lot of these guys that are, what we would consider the bottom 10% are doing what their seniors did for them. Like, you want to be cool. And now all of a sudden there's all this shit talking in the station. And then all of a sudden a few of the movers and groovers get on the same page. They get that middle 70 to move like, well, you can choose. You want to do this and be proactive. You want to do this and do nothing. Well, naturally they drift to the proaction, and you make it accessible. And that's where the whole elite only being there for the elite gets in the way. And that you've got to be the most driven are the most driven. And those people, you need to get on the same page so that the coaching staff is all speaking the same language and allowing the function players who might step into that role when it becomes culturally acceptable to be driven and rewarded. And maybe as chief officers, we should be, now I can say that, we should be rewarding, which is something that I do. I don't need to give you a pin. When I walk out and talk to a couple of the guys I've got here, I've already spoken with them. I'm like, listen, you are going to be phenomenal. And your skill set is dynamite. And your drive is dynamite. But more important than that, how you talk to people is fantastic. If you keep that and don't put people off, you're going to change this agency and this region, no question. And, one guy the other day, I was like, your skill set, I could put in any place in the country right now, and you could teach it. Your skill set is really refined. What I need you to work on is some of your verbiage so that when people are hearing it, they're not hearing your narrative, they're hearing the technical. So it's like, all we've got to do is pull those people aside and say, yeah, you're doing a good fucking job, and I appreciate it. And that builds trust. And it's not rocket science. It's like, yeah, it really is just basically like, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. As my mother would say, have manners. My mom would say, manners are the oil that lubricates society. This is my paraphrase of her statement. Manners are the oil that lubricates society. We always have the time for manners, and without the threat of violence, there's no such thing as a civil society. So, it's like, in a lot of our fire department behavior that we get away with, which on the street, I mean, both of you have been talked to in a way that if somebody was talking to you like that on the street, you punch them in the mouth. So don't do that. Let's just not do that. Like, because you might get punched in the mouth,
Yeah. Well, we all wear daddy pants. We're adults, right? You don't need to talk down to somebody like there's some punk ass kid. I mean, we're literally grown ass men, and why can't we have grown ass men conversations?
Yeah.
And be mature about it. Because come on, I'm not talking to my kid. I'm talking to a coworker or a guy on my rig and stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Aaron, what kind of changes, like, I mean, technique wise, what are you seeing? And I, reading, your Nozzle Forward and stuff. And I mean, it seems like you guys are, and I think culturally we're getting back to that in the fire service, is that aggressive fire attack. We when I came on in 2002, we were still attack to fire from the unburned side, that you would like drag a hose to the back door, even though the fire's right in the front, We drag a hose to the back door, come through the unburned side because we were going to push fire. We are going to make things worse. We're going to push fire back on victims. We're going to do, spend so much time doing it. Unburned side, unburned, Hurricane Sandy comes through and they do all that testing and stuff. And now, we're putting wet stuff on the red stuff like right away, reduce that heat, make it more tenable for any victims inside. Playing the game with our fire tetrahedron. When I teach at WIT, it's as simple as that, right? That we play that game and we run that formula and stuff with, our heat, our fuel, our chemical reaction, and our oxygen, and we have to play that game and understand flow paths and understand water and stuff. But what do you see, like tactic wise? I mean, what's the biggest changes that I guess you have seen in your career?
You want the good news? And the good news is that when you came in and I came in roughly in the same era, same era, just a couple of years earlier, and it was regional. No one in the Pacific Northwest said attack from the unburned. The first guy that ran a marathon died. If I was going to run down the street and come up the backside, I'd get to the back and drop fucking dead, which always has made me wonder why they don't run just a little less, right? And, I'd jump fences. There'd be one kicking bag with a weight bench, which means 4 pit bulls. I mean, it would just be, so that is a regional thing because you guys have more lateral space. So I think what's happened is because of the internet, which most of the time I will lament the advent, but because of the internet, and we're in this forthcoming of information exchange, which leads every time, whether it's the printing press, the radio, or the television, every time there's a massive explosion in the rate in which information is exchanged between humans, the same things happen. Fake news, misinformation, slander, all of those things those laws come out of the Renaissance. And so we are in that Renaissance. And after that comes this boom of information. So what I think has happened is I think some of I've been to places where they're like, you know what you should do? Put a fan in the front door. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Have you never blown on a campfire? Like, you're going to get fire all over the place. Well, no, because this one time in a training building, it worked. And you're like, right. But so I think a lot of those kind of more cockamamie methodology are gone. I think we're actually seeing the tendency, the fact that you and I are discussing flowing and moving, pushing, and that, you do move the byproducts of combustion and extinguishment, but you don't move fire. That those byproducts you're smoked before you're roasted. But if you have cool smoke and steam rolling over you that's cold, it doesn't hurt you. It's when it's hot. And the way it's going to get cold is continuous water applied liberally. And so I think there's less of, I think we're coming to a place where as a country, I don't know if we've ever been there's still stuff going on that's goofy, but I think the information exchange has made it so that we're actually, this isn't popular. You're supposed to say the sky is falling, but I don't think the sky's falling. I think some of the conversations that seemed like we were throwing the baby out with the bathwater are coming to more mature conclusions because we are engaged in a long-term conversation that's talking about, okay, this data point is only relevant in data, in a test. In real life, it's relevant to this, and that means we're going to go this way. So I think there's a little more uniformity overall, not perfect, but much better than when my first class ever outside my region was myself and one of my guys I worked with for years, love him like a brother, Matt Lujan, went to Lincoln, Nebraska, and we were looking at their hose loads. And I remember Matt looking at me and going, what is that? Like we'd never seen flat loads or triple loads. We don't do them. We do what we call shoulder loads, which you would refer to as a Minuteman load, which I'd never heard that term. So it was all regional. And now we're like, oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're starting to come around. I think that what we have to be careful of is to make sure that the industry itself doesn't, it's kind of like giving a kid cotton candy. Like if give a person a microphone and watch out, and give a person a platform and watch out, and promise them X dollars because they're selling a product and watch out. You're going to see who's got ethics and who's doesn't, right? So I think as long as our industry keeps being powered from the bottom, because water boils from the bottom, I think if we start to write our own books that don't have profit margins on them, and that we start to look outside of our own industry to get grant funding from aeronautical, like I'm trying to get one because I've got some really interesting and video of real wind-driven fires, like up to 45-mile-an-hour wind-driven, where it's a minute 8 for final extinguishment through 3 rooms, fully involved, 45-mile-an-hour wind, straight in the front door. It's coming from the Charlie side. But the line stays on the whole time. So you're predicated on having that skill. But I think that there's something to be said for like looking at it instead of in colloquialisms and wives' tales, in data, and getting engineers involved with like, okay, what is the opening ratio on your vent profile? 1 window, 2 window, 1 interior door, where, what is that? If it's 1,000 square feet of glass open through a residential door, well, it's much like the funnel effect, right? It's basically head pressure in fluid dynamics. But in wind, what is it exactly? And so I think we should be looking at getting our funding from places that don't have a vested interest in products, because products fund many, many conferences, products that add complexity. There's a book by the name of Normal Accidents by an author by the name of Perot, which was really big for me for like paying attention to simple, keep it simple, stupid. And the example he uses is, it's a very difficult read because he's an academic, but he studies risk. And he's like, under acute stress, you're the best nuclear physicist in the world. And if you mess up, your state and the state next to you are gone because you're in charge of safety. And you got a wall full of gauges, levers, and dials. And you got to pay attention to all of them. Or you got 3 gauges, and if they're not green, pull the 1 lever, shut it down. Which is safer? What's the most used weapon platform in the world? The AK-47. I drove a Jeep over one made in '67 and still continued to shoot with it. So, we have to keep the reality of what chaos or not chaos, variables do to the human being and performance, and realize, it really isn't rocket science. Like, turn it on, flow it till it's out, do good searches. If you need more water, get more water, and then make a hole. Okay, wash and repeat, So I think we're in a good spot.
Yeah. Are you, then with that and stuff, we've got some guys here doing some training with us and stuff, and doing more of the flow and move and the constant flow and stuff. So it's a little bit different technique than what we're used to. For our department wise, It's going to be sets and reps. It's different than what we were taught. It's different than what I was taught on probation. In fact, my third man today, he was kind of like upset by the whole thing when we were done with the evolutions today. And he's like, okay, why wasn't I taught this on probation? And he's only been on, 5-6 years and stuff. So, and he's like, why wasn't I taught this on probation? I said, because it wasn't a thing then, dude. For us, it was not a thing. This is a new thing for us. We were doing the same thing we've done for, 100 years, because that's, Sioux City's kind of steeped in tradition. It's what we do. So now we have, a different mindset. We have guys that are, going conferences, that are, researching stuff on internet, seeing what works. And we're going to try some stuff. We're going to throw a bunch of stuff at the wall. We're going to see what sticks and see what works for us here. With that being said, what do you, whether it's Seattle or your department now, we're playing a lot more now with smoothbore, with straight tip, with straight tips and stuff. And that's not, Midwest is a big fog nozzle territory. We want that steam conversion at 1700 to 1 at 212 degrees, and what, 4,000 to 1 at 1,000 degrees and stuff. But we look at that steam conversion versus penetration and reach. What's your opinion, or I guess what's your go-to?
Well, I'll say that equipment is a little bit, as long as it falls into a certain category, a range, it's a little bit of the difference between Nikes and Adidas. Now, automatic fog nozzles were never originally marketed to go inside buildings. They were rubbish lines and exposure lines. So let's remove that out. And let's say we're going to compare 150 gallon a minute, 50 to 75 pound at the tip, fixed gallonage fog versus a smoothbore 7/8 or 15/16. Yeah, whichever one you have, just know how they work and know what they do and where their problems are. I think that a poor carpenter blames his tools. And I think we can make good equipment choices that are fiscally responsible and humanly responsible. But a lot of times people come out and say, man, we just made, we're going to buy all new nozzles. And I'm like, well, great. But could you, is there other places? And how about the next time you buy nozzles? And so I've used them both. I've used them both pretty extensively in real fires and in training. And if you're on a 2.5 inch and 1/8 all day, I want reach, I want volume, I want ease of use. 95 to 105 pounds of nozzle reaction for 265 gallons. I'm not a big component, but I don't. People are going to 2 1/4 and all this. 2.5. 2.5 is the only hose that stood the time of American fire history. It's the only hose that's rated for both supply and attack. It's not that much different if you have some technique, and there are options out there. I like 2.5. One of my mentors that's from the Midwest, Jeff Shoup, really worked for years and years off 2 inch. And I think that there's a place for that in certain settings, but he will even say it's very specific settings. On 1 3/4, I grew up with 15/16. And I think that 15/16 is a great nozzle. It's binary, it's on or off. I can hydraulically ventilate it with it. 7/8, if you're coming from a fog nozzle department, the 7/8 is often a little easier to get the pump charts right on. And, whatever. I think that's 160 gallons a minute. So what I do know is that smoothbore operate closer to optimal velocity. I do know that they put more water further down range. And I do know that gas cooling is secondary to solids. So that gas cooling that you were talking about, that conversion, is secondary to the solid fuels being cold, because once the tacos are cold, your digestion doesn't continue to produce gas. Gas is secondary to solids, and high is always hotter than low. So if you're always starting your stream up high on working fires and working it down to the lower register, then you're cooling the roughest, the first, the hardest to get to, the hottest, all that. And I think that reach and penetration. Now, what are we talking about? Well, air-wise, we're talking about on both of those nozzles, as I described, fixed gallonage, we're talking about 1 to 6,000 cubic feet on average, about 2 to 4,000 cubic feet of air. When Jerry Knapp and Fornell did their original studies, their studies were good, but the testing wasn't as scientific. So that they used to think that a fog nozzle on straight stream moved 1/2 to 3 times as much, 1/2 more or 3 times more than a smooth. That's not true. What we missed was that fog stream entraining air entrains because of the droplet. But what a smooth does is volume and velocity. So what it lacks in the ability to entrain through airspace in the stream, it's making up for more or less, in simple terms, volume and velocity. So I think you should use the equipment you have, and you should always be trying to engineer simpler systems with binary weapon platforms,
Yeah.
But I think a lot of times people get into it like, well, I wear Adidas, and I'm like, well, I wear Nike, and a Nike are better. They're all fucking tennis shoes. No,
Right.
At the end of the day, and I don't think that we should be engaging in that stylistic fight. We should be looking at it objectively and then making decisions that make sense for us. If you fight a ship fire or an urban interface fire, you should have a fog nozzle for sure. But should that be the one you're going to take into the 3 bedrooms going in the back of the house? Probably not. You should probably, the smoothbore is going to serve you just fine. And it's going to be simpler under pressure. So yeah, that's my take on it. Personally, I am a fan of simple. I'm not very bright, so I work real hard at just knowing what my equipment works. And I like the smoothbore because it offers no illusion. I know right now whether it's working or not. I get more water further down range. But if I showed up and you guys had all hell break loose and you needed an extra guy, 54-year-old nozzleman that spent 17 years on the nozzle and 5 years as the backup, just for the record, I could work with whatever you have.
Yeah,
because I understand how the equipment, what its pros and cons are.
Very good.
So I guess, but I will say, so yeah, and for you guys, like I like that answer that it's like a regional thing as far as, the whether you're attacking going straight in or we did the hitting it hard from the yard here. That was probably within the last 5 years we started doing. That's been a term here and stuff in Sioux City. I
think that died pretty quick.
Yeah. But I mean, it was a thing that was never. I mean, again. And maybe it's a regional thing, but we never applied water from the exterior unless we were in a defensive attack. It was always,
Really, when you look at it, when you really read the problem with all that data was, and I was part of one of the UL panels, and I made the advocacy that we needed to have tech writers because the engineers weren't great at, like, there's some stuff that could be cleaned up and made more clear, instead of just a litany of facts. And I think they've gotten better at it. But if you really read the study says if outside water slows you down from inside, don't do it. Put water between the victims and the survivable spaces, the internal exposures of Resio. You can slice it, dice it, Ginsu for 1995 too. The rescue, exposure, confine, extinguish, overhaul. And that E in exposure is the interior exposures before the exterior. And so, like, Steve Kerber, who I'm friends with and I got a lot of respect for, he was like, this is being misunderstood. The point is, if you aren't going in because of a heavy body of fire, entrance is delayed, and you have access to the body of fire, slow it down. I disagree with resetting because it doesn't reset the whole space. It just slows the room development down. But I think that's a bad word choice, but that's semantics. Don't do it. But if you can go in and put it out, because that saves lives and property. And I think that originally, I think a lot of times the fire service has an average age of 40, 45, but a maturity of 13. They're looking for drama. It's like, there's no drama here if you would actually read more than 3 sentences.
Yes.
And like it's not like we also were not big on outside water, but if there was I had this lieutenant that was being talked about, and this one guy, and he stands up and they're like, what do you think, so and so? And he's like, listen, I don't give a fuck where you start water from. Start it from down the fucking street. I don't give a shit. Are you going in or staying out? That's all I need to know is second due. Don't care where you start it from. Hitting it from the outside because you can't go in the front door, that's not fucking new. I've done that for 40 some years at this point. Like, yeah, no shit. Or if I can't go inside because my firefighter tripped, well then, yeah. But if I'm going in, I'm going in. And that's pretty damn close paraphrase or close quote to what he actually said. Ridiculous. Like, who wrote this? And then he left.
Yeah.
So it's not rock.
I think part of that problem is people are trying to apply one thing to every fire too. I mean, like you said, not every fire is different, obviously, but I think with those new things that come out, everyone tries to apply them to every situation, and it's like, no, that's just not intelligent firefighting at that point. You're just.
Yep.
Hey, Lieutenant, real quick, can you turn your overhead lights on for us? We're really losing you.
Oh, yeah, sure. Hold on. Sorry about that. By the way, too. Oh, here we go. Lights.
There we go.
There we go.
About that. Yeah. And the other one is, and this is a big one. And that is, knowledge is power when it's shared freely. When it's lorded and hoarded, it's divisive and destructive. And there was a certain demographic that latched onto that stuff and were trying to tell us we were doing it all wrong. And some of those influences are from places that have different fire problems than we do. Different, like their buildings are different. They're And it's like, we're not doing it wrong. We're doing it different. But if you did that here, you'd be dust. Like, they're bigger fires. Like, the building's burning, for fuck's sake. That makes it different. And there's more stuff. So I just think that what happened was it was a chance to become petty. And unfortunately, what it did, I think, is there was this trend towards, well, we're science guys. Well, I'm a science guy. I also know that continuous water down a hallway within 20 to 25 feet, on average 5 to 15, makes it better for everybody. And the science proves that, as does the experience. And then what it did is it created the science guys and the old school guys.
Mm-hmm.
And what it did is it created, like, what were the Jets and the Sharks? Is that what it is now?
Right.
How about we just act like grown-ups and go, well, this makes sense. And at the end of the day, is it your ego that's or our ego collectively that's in the way? Because the civilians don't give a shit. If I show a civilian film of hitting it from the outside and pushing down a hallway and putting it back in the room and then outside, if I said, I'm going to only choose one, they'd say, push it down the hallway. And then I'd say, I can't get in. Well, then put it through the window. That's not rocket science. Like,
no.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And who do we work for?
Yep. It's good stuff.
Yeah. So, I guess, so through your career and stuff, and you're dropping, like, lots of names, guys you work with, who's kind of been some of your biggest influences? Or, I know you kind of touched on mentors a little bit or whatever, but guys that have kind of helped you the most, I guess, whether it's career wise or, and maybe we stick to that, because, you kind of, as far as your leadership or working your way up in Seattle there and stuff. I mean, who are guys that kind of helped pave the way for you, helped guide you a little bit?
My dad, but really in example, and later, after I was in and going for a while, then more technical. My parents weren't super stoked about my brothers and my choices. If we had decided to do something else, they would have been happy with that. My dad said, as your dad, this is a paraphrase, I'm super complimented that you and your brother have followed me into this profession. It means it meant something to you. But as your dad, I'm fucking terrified, because I know what you're going to do and who you're going to do it with, and sometimes who's going to be doing other things around you. Don't tell your mom. So your wife. So my dad, and then my second mentor retired from Seattle after 35 years, a woman by the name of Meg Jones, Lieutenant Jones. Tom Norton was a captain. He started right with kind of the advent of this PAX. There was a couple of guys who were pre-SCBA that I just can't remember their names, because they were just very kind of hands-off. Jeff Shoup, Timmy Klett, indirectly Andy Fredericks. So I was reading Andy Fredericks stuff before 9/11, had a class picked, and then 9/11 happened. So one of the greatest things of my career, compliment wise, was I was the first person that didn't know him personally, and the first West Coast guy to present at what was Andy Fredericks Training Days and is now Training Days. There's Jimmy McCormack, has helped me. Steve Serbic has helped me. He's a chief out of Vancouver. I've got a lot of people that have helped me along the way, but I would be remiss in not saying the cadre, like Matt Lujan, Maggie Blackwood, Brendan Grace, Jordan Legan, Nate Jameson, Nick Simon, all these folks that I have that have kind of helped with this are equally my mentors, as well as my confidants, which at a certain point, you hit this point with our group that, there's just Carl Waite, Josh Schmidt, Kat Knowles, Hans Christensen, all these folks, Corey Tolfree, that have become peers. I was most of their, Luan and I worked together, and he started joining me with stuff that I'd done before I came to Seattle. But the rest of them are people that I coached, and now they're on par. They're mentors as much as confidants. Like I do some stupid shit. They're going to hold me to it, and they're equally good at it as I am. And and so it's like the conversations that we're having now are what I wish that more people could experience. Like, so often in our industry, the teaching cadres are a pecking order. And one of the things that people that take our program was, well, one, if you're one of our instructors, and I say that collaboratively, our instructors, Jake Johnsrud's up by you guys, you only teach with us. Our Nozzle Forward instructors don't teach with other groups, because that's not teaching with. That's teaching a piece here and a piece there. And that's piecemeal, which is about technique, not about problem solving. And one of the greatest compliments I get every class is, it didn't matter who was talking. It was the same message. And you guys would pick up each other's sentences, and it was seamless. And it was clear you liked each other, respected each other, and were having fun. And that is contagious. And so, and I've got, more like kind of that traditional Jeff Shute professional mentorship situation with people. But the big thing for me is, because where I was, I didn't have a guy in my first, or gal in my first station, in my first fire department. I had a person here that worked on another shift. I had a person here that was in a neighboring agency. I had a person here that was across the country. And, Dave McGrail. Dave, Jay Camella. I mean, all these folks have gone into it. And I think one of the cool things with us is, with all of those people, I'm friends with them. I'm friends with them, even though we've come to slightly different conclusions on how to accomplish the task, because I cite my sources. So Timmy Klett might, as he would say, I don't understand what you're doing down there on the ground, but it fucking works. And it's great, and then he would pick up the conversation that we were having a year ago in the next word, because he's wicked smart like that. So I think that that's a big thing. So many of the cadres out there, they teach with someone for a while, and then all of a sudden they don't like each other anymore. And that's an ego thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like that, to me,
that's let ego get in the way.
Yeah. And I think that often too, they're not actually on the same page. They're on the same drill grill.
Yeah.
Like, I've always viewed this thing as, if you're going to tell me it's paramilitary, then you better be military. You better tell me what it is we do, and only deviate once I know that. And one drill instructor and another drill instructor should be the same. One infantry instructor is the same as the next guy. It's not about the individual, it's about the skill set. And that's what makes, I feel like, what we're doing, at least coming at it largely from a different angle. It's not about Aaron Fields. It's about a skill set that these group of people can share.
So how does, and you kind of talked about the origins as far as Nozzle Forward, and basically just kind of out of fear, but how does it, a dude just sitting around and just starts like dudes at NASA, you just think stuff up, you all of a sudden you start doing some research and just thinking, at the time, I guess. I mean, was there pushback? Was there acceptance? I mean, when you try to implement and start doing some of this stuff, how does, if you're just a dude trying to change things, you're like, hey, this makes sense, or this is maybe this is a different way or a better way to do stuff. How does that happen?
Well, it started with looking at a way to hold a hose and go, all my mentors are much better firefighters than me, but I'm a much better hugger. I've spent my whole life hugging, and I'm looking at leverage and going, here's a way to change my hips. And then I read some, because I've always been intellectually curious. So I read some data and go, well, falling through holes, not flowing water, and not having a second line above the fire when a search is going on for prolonged periods are the three riskiest things that happen on the fire ground. No one's ever died with an open flowing line. So, well, I got to be able to flow. And then what's the space and talk? And then I would call an engineer and I'd work on a technique and I'd abstract it. Just like if you showed me a new way to throw a swing single, I need to understand the principle of that. Even though we're different body types, I'm going to be able to take it apart. So it started with the physiological study of leverage and movement, and then translating the stories into what they were trying to accomplish. Like strip away the narrative and go to, this is what was happening. They were in a rambler, which is in the last 15 feet to the private space, which is down the hallway to the public, to the bedroom. And this is what was going on. And so I just kept taking notes and it was largely an exercise in solo for the first 10 years. Sure. But, the guy that I couldn't beat did a lot of solo training. The guy that won a bronze medal that I was a throwing dummy for in a foreign country, he did a lot of solo training when the team was practicing, when the team wasn't practicing. And so that concept wasn't foreign to me. And I'm just enough sociopath that I just don't give a shit. My fields of fucks is fallow. Like, I don't give a shit what people I mean, really, right. And so I would be out there drilling. The other point, I think, is this, and I think it's a question of management and leadership. We talk right now a lot in leadership, and there's a lot of ways to skin the cat. But for me, leadership isn't a pull. It's not a push, it's a pull. So often in our fire service, we talk about it like a business school, like you're trying to motivate somebody to maximize profits. And I think leadership is a series of behaviors that are exhibited at every level, to paraphrase war fighting again. And that every healthy institution has leaders at every level that understand their sphere and their sphere of operation. And they are these things. They are accountability, transparency, honesty, a work ethic, and the willing to demonstrate and do it again. I think that's basically what it is. And it's, you just do it. And you do it because you're self-motivated. I have never intended to do anything to the fire service. I just am trying to be the firefighter. I'm trying to be the husband. I'm trying to be the father, the son, the brother, the friend that I wish I was, not the one I am, not today. It's who I'm trying to be. And I'm verbalizing what that is to me and trying to be that thing. And I think that the best example is, I'm a pretty avid reader. I don't watch a lot of media. And in Stephen Ambrose, who is a prolific American historian that wrote he wrote prose, which is rare. It's like Shelby Foote. If you read Shelby Foote's Civil War, you can't help but be involved, because though he's an amazing historian, he is a gifted writer. Same with Ambrose. And Ambrose wrote a series of books. I think the best one was Citizen Soldier, the one that I enjoyed the most. But the most popular is Band of Brothers. And I think the essence of leadership is there's a point when they're making the 101st Easy is going into France. And when you listen to them talk, if you listen to the oral accounts or you read, they all say basically, Winters was the best combat leader I ever had. I trusted him. He had integrity. He told you what he wanted. He's a straight shooter. He did the things that he asked you to do. In fact, would never ask you to do something he wouldn't do. And according to more than one account, they're behind a berm, elevated railroad track, if I recall correctly, and the Nazis are on the other side. And this might be partially right. And he says charge, and nobody moves, and he charges. And that's when everybody goes. That's the essence of it. He's doing it because it's what you're supposed to do, and I'm going to do it. And if other people choose to go through, it's a venturi, it's a pull, it's not a push. And it's also, when I hear people say, I'm trying to change the fire service, I'm like, you're going to be grossly disappointed. If you want to change the fire service, be the person you wish you were. Be the person you're asking other people to be. And give that behavior credibility by doing it with dignity, grace, and a sense of humor. And if you do that, everybody else is going to be like, well, this guy's at least fun to hang out with, And I think that's what it is. And all the best leaders that I've ever had have done that in some capacity, whether they be my coaches, whether they be my captains, whether they be my older friends in the neighborhood. And the worst ones always told you what you should do and berate you when you made a choice. They're trying to push you to do what they want you to do instead of empowering you to do what by doing it themselves and giving that behavior a public forum through demonstration, not talk. I mean, I have a lot of guys, how do you put up with it? How do you put up with it? And how do I put up with it? Is if I let that fucker take away what I'm doing because I'm sad that he didn't get it, then he beat me. I'm not going to get beat. I'm in control of me. Like, nope. Whether they like it or not, don't care. Keep going. It'll work out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
I think that.
So,
I think,
yeah. So let's get, I mean, this is like, yeah, just draking it all up. I mean, this is like on a, I don't know, a whole nother level and stuff that just, the sponge is like getting pretty full here and stuff. So, you know, I mean, I can't.
Honesty,
just,
really, right? It doesn't resonate unless you think it. All that, and that's the thing. People are like, oh, that was great. And it's like, well, was it great or was it just a verbalization of what you already feel? And maybe it's a different way to articulate it. Like if you disagreed completely, I mean, those are kind things to say, but if you disagreed or your listeners disagreed completely, there would be no resonation. The resonation is from the fact that I remember hearing the first person say, fucking, we're doing this because this is what we're going to goddamn do. And our goddamn oath says that we're going to do it. I mean, that's basically how they said it. And I was like, well, that makes sense. Let's do this. Let's go, you know?
Yeah.
So I think I appreciate it, but I think it's when people resonate with something, it's because they feel it is the truth and they feel like it's unguarded and unshielded.
Yeah,
very much so.
I like that. So let's change it. Let's switch gears here just a little bit and just get into just some regular, just firehouse, little bit of table talk and stuff. Are there any, like, I guess through your career, any real good calls, any memorable calls, anything, you know, exciting, fun? I mean, stuff that stands out to you that, like, you know, the stories, you know?
Yeah, I've got a lot of them. One of them was when I ate like D shift. I was on D shift. I was typically at this particular station. It will remain unnamed because they're still working. They do this thing called a Med 7 burger. And a Med 7 burger is Med 7 in the city of Seattle is code for, and I've told this story a few times, but is code for a heart attack. And this thing is like, oh, dude, it's terrible. It's like a pound patty with a quarter pound of different cheeses, gravy, eggs, sauerkraut, onions, lettuce, pickles. The buns are grilled cheese sandwiches.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh no, dude, it takes. I was working a payback shift, a debit shift. So in my station on a different shift, and we catch a duplex fire after I had just a sliver of this thing. And we're in the middle of this thing, and it's a split. It's an old house that's got a top and bottom, and the B unit's on the bottom. And we're on fighting fire on the top floor, and we're in the middle of it. And I'm like, oh. So I grab iron, run out the back of the house, go into the B unit underneath, pop the door, go in there. The water's still on. Water's running down the walls. They're still fighting fire. And I'm down there with my mask on reading a Sports Illustrated magazine.
Horrible things are happening.
Awesome.
And that's when I knew passport systems, it was bullshit because I was down there for probably 15 minutes. It was the whole like, okay, I'm ready to go. Oh, no, not ready to go.
Nope, not done yet.
Not done yet. So there was that one. There was another, you know, just your kind of bread and butter, good fires. Had a pretty good warehouse one that I went in and I was on another crew and backed this guy up because we were committing more hands to this 2.5. And their senior firefighter, who typically in Seattle, at least, it was Nozzle is the junior, Heel is the senior. And so how a line would configure would be Nozzle, Heel, line 2, or second crew, Heel, Nozzle. So the two heels who are de facto officer, unless there's an officer there, could communicate. Well, their heel healed off somehow. So I bump up with this guy, come up to this guy, and we're in there, and he's like, I don't know. And I'm just like, let's just open it up and see. So it's just this moment when I just recently transitioned from the senior, from the nozzle to the heel position, which is, there was kind of a thing. And it was my first time as a heel, like, oh, I'm doing the job here. I'm doing what I'm actually supposed to do, not just the layout. We got into place and got a really good hit on it. And that guy to this day, well, he's on a truck now, so I really don't talk to him much because he eats crayons.
Yeah. Why would you? Yeah.
But he'll still tell you about that fire and how it was so progressive, and that he said he was calm because he was wondering what happened to his guy. And I catch up to him like, hey, so-and-so is at the front door. He's coming back in. Let's just do this and we'll get through this. There was that one. And then I think the one, I mean, there's been a lot of them that, little things have happened, but there was one, and I tell this story fairly regularly because I think it's important for new folks to hear that it's not all the guts and glories. And it was a fire in which it was a 2-line fire, and I think the only other person that was there that day that knows this, well, I guess there's 3. It was a full alarm, and there's 3 that know it. 2 of them have retired, 1's still working. But what happened was, and this goes to show you why we're supposed to be professional, as you alluded to. So we go in and we're fighting fire in this house, and it's a 2-line fire, and there's no saves made. It's bread and butter. It needed 2 lines because of a weird remodel, and it had burned through. And so the first line does a bang up, really good job, makes our job easy. I shut a door on a bedroom, go about our business. I come out, and I'm standing next to the chief, and the family comes up to me, or comes up to him and says, hey, my grandmother needs their medications, and they're in that room back there. And I'm like, hey, chief, that room was down the hall from the fire. I shut the door. If it's in plastic and low, I bet it's fine. I bet you there's some scorch on the ceiling. I can go in and check and get them. And he's like, okay, do it. So I go in and mask back up and go in and get the medications, find them. And on the wall, there's a bunch of pictures and paintings. And some of them look like they were done by family members, and some of them were taken in a while. And there's one, and it's about, yay big. It's probably almost 18, almost 2 feet long and 15 feet high. And it's this old woman wearing a white shirt, black dress in front of this farmhouse. And she's standing. And what made it stood out was, one, it was that I've been informed that it's not red, it's sepia. It looked like it was taken in the early 1900s, right? Mm-hmm. And she's standing there in front of this house. And this was not a woman to trifle with. This woman was ready to go to blows. And the starkness stood out. So I grab it and a bunch of other stuff, and an armful of this stuff, and I take them out, and the family starts flipping through them and puts the medications down and starts looking through the stuff. And they pull that one out, and there's, I don't know, 8, 10. I became a little overwhelmed emotionally because it was such a personal moment where the family comes up and they're crying, and I'm like, what's going on? Because I had my gear stripped down now, and they're like, that woman was born a slave, emancipated when she was 2, and that's the first piece of property we owned and still own is free Americans. And I was like, that's a fucking game changer right there. Wow. Perspective is a powerful, powerful tool. And, it resonated with me because I'm adopted, actually. And my dad, if you see a picture of him, doesn't look anything like me. He looks like those folks. And he's my dad by every measure that matters. And my last name is descended from North American slave trade. My birth name was Foster. And it's my biological mom. They've been together for 54 years. And he took over parenting when I was 9 months old. My biological father loved heroin more than he loved anything else. And I was born out of wedlock because my mom didn't know she was pregnant when she divorced him. And so I think that it was a powerful tool because they don't know any of that. What they see is one of their firefighters making them a priority. And for me, and it doesn't matter whether you have that background or not, if that doesn't resonate, then you're probably in the wrong goddamn job.
Yeah, you're in the wrong business for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was, for me, that was at 16 years and 16, right about 16, 17 years. And that one really affected me in a lot of ways. And I think it grew me up. I became less concerned with bullshit and bravado, though I never really was. When you're 35, there's a little more piss and vinegar that's overt. It's just the nature of being 35 or 40. But it really made me pay attention to my behavior. No matter how good of a fire it was, my behavior when people are watching, and my behavior towards people in their worst moment. And it doesn't take much. Like, we so often walk out, walk away, don't think about it again, because we're going to see multiple of these in our career. But that stop moment where you see the person that's struggling going, hey, it's going to be okay. Your family's out. We did everything we can do. And before I leave, I'm going to come back. Do you need a cup of water? You need something? Or can I make sure you get in contact with the person? It's that little extra human part that humanizes the event. And, there's no way to quantify it, and there's no way to reward it. But I'll tell you that because I have embraced my profession in the way I have, I'm not bitter. And I'm thankful for what it's given for me. And it's, it takes some stuff. There's a cost to this. And so I think that was the one that, if you were going to ask me about one that really changed the way I thought about it. And then I crawled over a person once that was, it's happened more. I bumped into dead people in fires more than one time. But there was that moment when you're with a wire brush. This was early in my first life, washing tissue out of your knee pads on the back of the fire engine. And you're like, that was another one, but fuck, man, look at what we do. And I think that's personally one of the things I tell my new folks is make sure that you always, it's not a misery contest. It's not how bad it was. It's a human contest, and humanity comes with success and failure and misery and joy. So make sure when you come back from the fire, I look at you and go, Lieutenant, that was a good bit of fucking bossing. I feel like we really hit that one firmly out of the park. And I really liked the fact that in this person's worst moment, we were able to offer some degree of comfort. And then we come back and go, well, we really messed that one up. And that was pretty sucky. You have to talk about them both. Otherwise, at the 25 years, you're going to become you guys mentioned mental health. And I know that's something that, done a little reading, and it's something you guys talk about. And the way that resiliency is about being honest and having a full spectrum of not just narrating the shitty stuff, because it'll become pretty ugly pretty fast, because we don't deal with anybody on their best day. So we got to find our joys. The other one, I'll add one more to it. It wasn't a fire. It was an EMS run in which there were 3 kids across the street. They didn't know I was from the same neighborhood. They played on the Rainier Eagles, which is the local football team. And they were out there in their uniforms post-Saturday game, throwing the ball around. And there were 3 of them, and everybody's out barbecuing. It's in this park off Othello. And families are out there and all this. And these kids and one's like 6, one's probably 10, one's 11 or 12. And I walk over because they didn't need me on the EMS run. I wasn't derelict of duty, right? But, and I've got my uniform on, and I'm like, hey, toss me the ball. And so they throw me the ball, and I start throwing patterns to them, and they're running patterns, and we're just playing catch. And then they say to me, the young guy, I don't remember his name, he can't catch. And I'm like, that's okay. So he goes short, I throw it. It is true, he can't catch, but he's fast. So I start handing him the ball, and he starts running, and then eventually he quits. And he's just standing there. And I'm like, you want to go out? And he's like, no, no, no. And we stand there for a minute. And it's the closest I've come into committing a felony at work. He walks up to me when I'm looking away and he holds my hand. He reaches up and holds my hand, a complete stranger in the fucking park that's just shown him a little bit of attention. And this kid is holding my hand. And I was like, all this kid needs is somebody to commit time to him.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if no one notices, I can take him and I'll do that for him. And I did.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, hey, if you ever see me again, come back. I work at this station. Come down. It was just that small little piece of, and I'm throwing the ball for the other kids. So I think those are some events that I've had that maybe don't fit the standard where there we were, you know, doing it, jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's that stuff, but fighting fire is actually fairly anticlimactic, really. I mean, it's fun, but like if you do your job well, it's not rocket science. Flow some water, make some holes, do some searches, or flow some water, do some searches, make some holes. Okay. And it's super cool and it's rewarding, but that's because I'm doing what I signed up to do. It's the soft skills that I've found that are the most personally rewarding later, or the skill experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, you said, kind of hinted towards it, you know, it's a weird thing to think about. And when you really stop for a minute and think, but we're your best friend on your worst day. When somebody calls, you know, I mean, really, I mean, when you really stop to think about it. And so maybe, you know, we should think about that and have that empathy. There's a reason we got called. There's a reason we're there. We're your best friend on your worst day.
And you can't have a bleeding heart or you'll bleed to death. But you do have to have a certain degree of, like, if this is a 35-year-old that lacks pioneer hardiness, whatever, like, you don't have to be rude though.
No,
it doesn't, just do it and move on. But you're right. Like, we're going to see this how many times today?
Yeah.
We're going to do that. You know, I'm not going to sleep at all. I'm going to do it so many times tonight, you know, and we just like, okay, next one. And so as a company officer, one of the things that I would try to do occasionally, and when we had that choice, is like, okay, slow down. We technically can go back in service right here. But you know what? This person's not ready yet. So we're going to hold a minute extra, 2 minutes extra. We're going to go that extra mile. I'm going to tell them, hey, we can give you another few minutes and then we have to go. But, you know, just little things. And the last crew I had was really good. My driver is a guy named Travis Landy, and he was really good about like making sure that as a company, we debriefed those things. And like, we're going to talk about these. Like, well, it's not just getting the rig. And even if it's 5 minutes going back, and he learned it from the lady that was the senior driver that kind of recruited me to that station, which was a lady of really phenomenal, one of the two best drivers I've ever ridden with, by the name of Wendy Owens. And she was amazing, my age. And like, she would be like, we're going to debate. We're going to talk about this. We're going to get this sorted out. We got to talk about debrief it. Positive and negative. What did we do? What we had done? And Travis, just when she retired, Travis just picked it up and it's part of that station, that shift's identity. And it was something that at times I'm not perfect at. I'm like, okay, next run, let's go. And they're like, hold on, we got the time. And so that was something I learned from them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like it. What kind of advice would you give to new guys coming on, you know, in this area of the fire service? You know, we talk about, I mean, it's changed. Even Sioux City, you know, the volume, the weirdness. Sioux City's always had a weird, but Sioux City's gotten the last couple of years especially really weird. I'm sure out on the coast, on either side of the coast, you guys see things first. Slowly it trickles in the Midwest. It's where we're kind of fortunate here, is that we could see trends and stuff like that out there. But you know, somebody coming in the fire service now, this new generation, this, you know, Gen Z, or what's after Gen Z now, the Gen whatever, you know, technologically driven, more connected than ever before. I mean, what What kind of advice do you give them coming into fire service?
Well, I think I give them the same advice I'd give them with their kids and their spouses. Put your fucking phones down. Put your fucking phones down and put them away. And like we had rules, like written down rules. There are no phones at the kitchen table when all members are present. And if you violate that, the only way you can use a phone is you say formally, for the good of the order, I am consulting the oracle. Usually when there's questions on fact, right? And if you got on your phone, you had to stand up and say, I formally apologize for my violation of the sacred rule of telephone. And so we made it a game. But I think the advice I would give them is the center of your home, the center of your relationships is the kitchen table and a coffee pot. And you can't shortcut that, and you can't Facebook that, and you can't Twitter bird that thing out. They call it the Twitters or the X's or whatever they're fucking talking about. You can't find it there. You find it in front of you. And the other thing I would say is don't be in a hurry. Like, take your time. And I think the modern generation is a why generation. Well, I've always been a why guy, and I'm 50. Why is good. And knowing when to ask it, and then not needing an instant answer. Like, if we could get those guys and gals to help us with data access, because they're better with computer machines than I am, but I could teach them how to do real research, you'd have a superpower. Because now you'd have millions of times of the Library of Alexandria at your finger. When I was in high school and when I started college, there were card catalogs. Like you had to, right? And so
Dewey Decimal System, you knew how.
Oh, hell yeah! And so you had to do your you had to do your research, and now they're just so instant, and their schooling is going towards data management, not critical thinking. So there's those things. Other than that, I think it's like, we forget that the generation coming in have fought the longest war in American history with more deployments than any other GI. So the whole they're soft thing is just not true. And also, if they ask why, don't throw a temper tantrum if you want them to be emotionally stable. Like people are throwing, my generation throws a temper tantrum because somebody said, what? Can you explain that? And so why is always good. Take the time to have the conversations, have long-term conversations. Don't need an answer right now. Be willing to research and develop it. And then the other one is just don't commit to the humans around you, not the humans that are through the wires or the satellites. They're second. They're not important right now. What's important right now is the people in front of you. And take the time that it takes.
Nice. I like it.
Good.
I like it because that's the truth. I came on, like, cell phones were not, you couldn't even have one in the firehouse. If you had a cell phone, you had to go out in the parking lot, out to your car to use it, to make a phone call. I mean, it was just not a thing.
People would flush them. Like, I don't know what happened to it. I don't know how it got in there.
But now, here we are. Anything, Lou, that we kind of say that, here we talking about phones and the interwebs and stuff, but, this is going to live on YouTube and stuff for who knows how long. Is there anything you want to kind of message, a time capsule and stuff for your, family, your friends, your wife, anybody that's, a lasting message?
Anybody that, there's so many people that have contributed to the sum total of the parts here that I guess the thing is, I appreciate the patience. I appreciate the commitment to somebody other than yourself. And for the, look what investing in people has done. Like, the first person that takes you under their wing professionally, as a parent, whatever, and invests time in you, time is the only asset we have we never get back. So the investment of time is the mark of the person. That's who they are. And I've had some really amazing people, wives, friends, mentors that have invested time. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. And, And that's all I'm trying to do. I'm trying to invest time in people that want to invest time back. So, yeah, I just, it's been a very humbling process, and that, you know, they say that attention sometimes takes people in one of two ways. And I've gone away from the star type shit and gone to what I've always done, which is just ignore all the hubbub. Someone says something bad, someone says something good, someone wants you to do something like this, which is always, every time I do these, I'm very thankful. It's like, it's a huge compliment, not to me, but to my body of work. And that's what I want people to remember, the body of work. Like, fucking A, that guy was wearing ratty ass sweats, losing 8 pounds a night, and he just kept going. And he wasn't the best, but fuck, he worked hard. And so, these kinds of things are really humbling, and I appreciate that, because it's nice to know that you're not alone.
It's awesome.
Wow.
Ship, what else you got?
I got nothing except thank you for your time, and there's a lot of nuggets in here, and I'm going to be replaying this one because it's been such a great time talking to you tonight. And again, just thanks for all you're doing for the fire service, and just keep on working because it's awesome. So
keep on working. And if you guys want to make any of those classes, you've got spots saved. All three of you, spots are saved.
Appreciate that.
Just say, I'm in audit, and that gets you in.
Oh,
We'll have some fun.
you.
You guys drink coffee?
Yeah. Are you kidding me? Yeah.
Okay. Well, the first round's on me.
Deal.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess we're bringing stuff from Seattle. That should be pretty decent. Pretty decent.
I haven't had a soda in 25 years. I don't drink because I wake up like Winnie the Pooh with no pants, a shirt, black eye, in jail.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see, but this finger is up.
I am
pinky's
up.
It's
okay.
Up.
What are you?
Okay.
What's your? Well, as long as we're, because we got to spend a minute for coffee now, because we usually talk to different people about. So, what's your preferred brewing method then? Are you a French press? Are you a Chemex? Are you a drip? What do you?
I'm a fully manual espresso, and I drink straight espresso. I drink it the way the Italians have designed it. And they kind of perfected it, so I don't know why people keep fucking up and putting like caramel in it and stuff.
In it, yeah.
Okay,
right.
Yeah,
very true.
If you want a milkshake, go get a milkshake.
Yeah.
Right? You want to? So I drink espresso, and if I'm being fancy, sometimes I'll do. If I'm traveling and I don't want it to continue to sour because espresso will continue to emulsify, I'll drop. I'll drop a little bit of water. So in this country, it's called an Italiano, which is basically an ounce or two to water to 2 ounces of espresso. But that's it. Yep.
Love it.
That's all you were on. Yeah. Nice. Love it. Yeah, because we're
what's your call? What do you do?
You get the standard bun at the firehouse, so that's a coffee all day. But when I'm at home, I know. When I'm at home though, like my preferred, if I have the time to sit and do it, I'm a big Chemex guy. So with the Chemex, the glass carafe, and basically essentially a pour over, but that that funnel, because that filters out like all the bitterness, all the impurities. Like I tell anybody, that is like the cleanest coffee. When you because if you have a bun and stuff and you look at it and it's like. Yeah, it's coffee, but it's still like that Chemex. Yeah, that Chemex. It's like it's clear. I mean, it's coffee, but it's like it's clear coffee. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just so pure. And then when you pour it, like you can taste the difference. And I love the process of doing it, where you get a really good roast. You get a good roast. You get the grind that you want. You put it in there. You get your water to 204 degrees. And you just take that time of pouring it and watching it filter down and stuff. I mean, I love that part of it. And then, you have this Chemex, this perfect coffee, and then pour that and just sit and enjoy it. Like I like, if I have time, like it's the whole thing, that it's not just grab it. I mean, but at the same time, you're a firefighter. So I mean, at the firehouse, there's still, I'm sure the bun is still on now, and that's from like our second pot that we had this morning. I'll probably pour some in a cup and sit at the computer, do some work tonight too. So, you do chew on it sometimes. So,
but yeah. Never look a gift horse in the mouth, but me too. With my home machines, I've got fully manual levers, and it's all about the process. It's the ritual is equally important. It really is like that whole like, okay, focus on this, shift out of whatever's else you're doing, focus on this. Okay, you just had a sip that proves the existence of the divine. Appreciate that for a second. Move on.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. Yep. Yeah. It's a whole, like, you sit there and for 10 minutes, 15 minutes or whatever, and you just breathe, and your mind clears of everything else. And it's just this current task right here, just this simple task, but it's just, I don't know. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I get it. Yeah. Rab, you got anything?
No, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Lieutenant, this has been amazing on a different level. I mean, like I said, the sponge is full, the synapses, everything is firing. I don't even know. Like, I'm gonna have to rewatch this just to really process once again everything going on here. I will say, I think you've probably got the record for the longest podcast. I know the record for the most F-bombs dropped in a single podcast. Yeah. So that is fantastic. It's who we are. Yeah, right? we are. You can't change that stuff.
And you were talking about pulling instead of pushing, and you pulled me to do that as well with you. So
I know. I was like, wow, look at Shipper just going off.
I'm passionate.
You're talking about attacking from the unburned side. That is a regional difference. Like, in my region, if I'm talking to a Chiefs meeting or something like that, I don't drop them.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, brain stuff. The area that processes vulgarity is closer to the emotional centers than the part that doesn't. So as long as when you swear, it's not vulgar or mean. Yeah. If it's an affirmation, it is almost universally assumed positive. So it's a little funny thing, but yeah, I apologize for that. I should have probably asked.
Yeah. Well, then, you know what? Fucking A.
Right. Yeah.
There we go. All right. Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think we're gonna call her a wrap too, because it's getting to be. I mean, it's 9:45 here. I don't know what time you got on the coast here. Are you 3 hours behind us?
Yeah, we're 3 hours.
2 hours? 3 hours? Yeah, 3 hours Mountain Time. Yeah, something like that. So, I know. Being from Seattle, hey, and this is just a stupid question, just for fun. And no, I'm not gonna hit on Star Wars. Do you know anybody from the Deadliest Catch? Like, do you see the boats out there? Being from Seattle.
I do see the boats occasionally. Yeah, they're a little bit like, they're part of the fleet for sure. I mean, the shows give quite a bit of PR, but I know those guys. They really are in the Fisherman's Wharf, and they're doing it. Yeah,
doing it.
I don't know. I don't know them.
But that was always like, I loved. I've watched Deadliest Catch for years and stuff, and then most of those boats are, shut up. Most of those boats are out of Seattle.
Always love traveling there though.
Yeah.
It's been a few years. I used to do that. I did the Scott air climb a couple times out there. So, yeah.
That's no joke.
It is no joke. And I don't know whether I hated myself or loved myself after each time doing it, but it was a great experience. And like I said, I just like traveling out there in general.
Well, that's like being a guy too from Seattle in the '90s and stuff. Were you guys Nirvana or Pearl Jam or Sonic Youth? I mean, what kind of? I guess Sonic Youth was Minneapolis and stuff, but yeah.
There was a couple those bands. There was a band called Action Buddy that was not the grunge. So the Seattle sound was what came out, but there's amazing jazz, there's amazing Americana.
There's a lot of influences. Yes.
There's a lot of like that kind of proto-punk rockabilly stuff. So I like a band called Action Buddy. And of the grunge stuff, one of the predecessors to all of those guys you mentioned was a band called Green River. And Green River broke up and went into, Mother Love Bone and all these other things.
I was going to say Mother Love Bone is what I would have gone with, but so pre-Mother Love Bone even was Green River.
Mother Love Bone, yeah,
Okay.
and that band Green River was pretty good because it was a little less, manicured. Early sound before they really got popular, like as a show, that was those guys could play. When they had their original bass player, Hero was his name, the guy, and that was something else. There's Action Buddy was like a Fishbone.
Okay.
Yeah, and they put on a really good show. Had a full kunga, percussion section and horns and they were fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
awesome.
Okay, well, I don't know. I got nothing. You got nothing. Rab, you good? Lou, you good?
Drop the tones, Baker.